Why, hello there, everyone. The Army of Otters here, and welcome to 3 hours of random Fallout 3 locations. For this video, this will be a compilation of my Unexplored Capital Wasteland series, and we'll be exploring various locations throughout the Capital Wasteland, and you can learn useful or interesting information, learn about some good loot, and the reason for this video is many of my viewers like to listen to it while driving or relaxing, to fall asleep, while settlement building, or just playing video games. So sit back, relax, and let's go explore the Capital Wasteland. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. This will be a new series in which we explore places in Fallout 3 that players might overlook or might be easily passed over. Don't you worry though, I will continue to produce Fallout New Vegas content, but I wanted to go ahead and get this series started, so here we go. Today we're going to be looking at the Super Duper Mart. This is a place I have a lot of nostalgia for, one of the first locations I ever visited in Fallout, so let's dive into Super Duper Mart. So as you approach Super Duper Mart, you're going to notice there's a lot of dead bodies hanging from the outside, signifying that something is very wrong and something nefarious is happening here. Upon entering Super Duper Mart, you're going to be confronted with a lot of raiders. Now, you might come here for the quest, Moira Brown's quest, where you have to help her write the Wasteland Survival Guide. Now, I came here as a very low level, so some of these raiders proved to be kind of a challenge for me, as they can have a lot of health, as you can see here. But a lot of hard work and determination, and of course stim packs, and I was able to power through all of them. And then there goes his head. On the left side here, we have some restrooms, and there was a raider inside of here. But using VATS, we were able to make quick work of him. Now, there wasn't a whole lot of loot inside of these bathrooms. However, there were some beds that you can sleep in to get your health back. And there's also some chems and a few bottle caps. But nothing very special. After that, we moved to the pharmacy, where there's a raider and some locked chests of ammo and a locked door. So after killing the raider, I jumped behind the counter to use as cover, and then here are the ammo boxes. And these primarily have 10mm rounds in it, which is good for me because I was using the 10mm pistol. So this place I think is pretty good for a new player such as myself, instead of somebody in late game. And there was a lot of ammunition and then tales of a junk down jerky vendor on the counter. And then inside this locked door, we can complete the optional task for Moira Brown's quest, which was to find first aid. Now, once you enter this door, you're going to have a scripted event happen that I completely forgot about, where a raider enters the Super Duper Mart and is suspicious.
We're back. Somebody open up the... Hang on. Something ain't right here.
So after that, these raiders are going to start searching the Super Duper Mart for your character, or for whoever has caused this disaster, which is you. And then, once you defeat them, you can go back to exploring the locked door. So, just take out the raiders. Simple enough. Good XP for lower levels, such as myself. But, he had a lot of health. Then after this, I decided to set a trap using these mines because I didn't want to waste too much more ammo on these raiders. And then I had this pretty cool sneak attack shot on a raider from far away. Then this raider was not so easy to kill, so I just shot him a couple times and I ran into this back room. In this back room, we can find a lot of first aid and junk, along with a mini nuke, which is really good. And then a first aid box with all kinds of supplies in it, and that'll complete the optional objective for our quest, and that raider finally decided to die. And then on the computer, we can hack it in order to activate the Securitron inside. So this will help you fight the raiders if you want it. However, you obviously don't have to activate them. But, you know, it makes it a little bit more less scary inside the abandoned supermarket to have a friend that will help you patrol and kill the remaining raiders inside. Besides that, we just have some ammunition. And on top, there's also the employee ID, which can be used on the computer. And then also in the back here, we have some Rataway and some more chems and junk. And most notably, though, is also some Nuka-Cola Quantums, which could be good for the quest, where you have to find all of the Nuka-Cola. So, not a bad place to get some loot, especially for early game beginning players. After I looted this back room, I went back into the main room to catch this shot, and I found an epic battle between the Securitron and a raider, which I found to be pretty funny.
Scan failure. Please present ID for of building. Please clear the area. Intruder alert. Prepare to be forcibly removed.
And then in the back, there is another back room with a raider in it. And then we want to kill him, of course. And then we have some more ammunition crates, which is pretty good. And pretty much all of these crates, though, have 10mm. So if you're a higher level or not using a 10mm, it's probably not so good. However, this box did have frag grenades, which will be very important later. Then I came over here and killed the last raider, which was actually much easier to kill than a lot of the other raiders, interestingly enough. And then in this back room is where we can complete the main objective for Moira's quest. However, first I wanted to pick up these stim packs, and again, we had some ammunition and a laser pistol on the counter. So, pretty good. And then over in this refrigerator, we have the food supplies that we need to get for the quest. After that, you pretty much completed everything inside Super Duper Mart. It's just empty aisles. But around Super Duper Mart, there's some interesting stuff. So over here, we have a water tower that appears to still be functional because we can drink water out of it. So it's been standing for quite a long time. Then next to the water tower, we have an abandoned house. And this house has a copy of the Chinese Army Special Ops Training Manual, which is really good. And then we had a really random event that I was really surprised. I got attacked by an Enclave soldier in power armor. Mind you, I'm a very low level at this point, so I was really shocked that this happened. And at first I thought I might run away, but then I thought, well, I have all of those frag grenades, so I can probably kill him. And then some Talon Company mercs decided to show up, and they helped me kill him. But then I had to obviously kill the mercs because they are very hostile to the player in this game for whatever reason. I never understood really why the player cannot be neutral with the Talon Company mercs. But after killing the Enclave soldier with grenades, I chucked the rest of my grenades at the mercs. And once that didn't work, I used my laser pistol to finish them off. But I was just really surprised that this kind of a random event happened to me because I'm such a low level. I'm only level 6, as you can see here. So still kind of just starting out. I haven't really ventured or discovered much in this game yet. So I was just really surprised. And then I looted the Talon Company mercs. And of course, I was able to loot the Enclave soldier and take his power armor. And while I cannot use it yet without the proper training, it's still pretty cool to have, I thought. And then if we head over towards the north side of Super Duper Mart, we can find this bridge. And you want to be more careful than I did. There's a mine that you see me walk over now. And that blew the copy of Duck and Cover, a skill magazine, somewhere that it was never found again. So if you come here, you're going to want to use your sneaking and then disable the mine. That way you can get the skill magazine. I came back and there was a random event at Super Duper Mart where they were bullying this raider. I don't know what they were doing or why they were doing it, but I interfered and I killed the raiders. Now, another interesting thing though is even though this raider was being like tortured or humiliated by these other raiders, he is not friendly to the player. He will attack you still. So I thought that was kind of interesting because he's kind of a dick. But there's a lot of eventful stuff happening around Super Duper Mart, so I was really happy that I recorded all of it. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Now, this series might be a little bit slower than the New Vegas series, but I am going to start producing it, and I think it'll be a lot of fun. If you have any recommendations for Fallout 3 or Fallout New Vegas, please post them in the comments section below. Until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be looking at the town of Megaton and the surrounding area. This is recommended to me by Benson151, so thank you for the recommendation. So obviously Megaton is a place that people will often visit. It's really hard to miss, so I wanted to try and find some things that people might overlook and just show everything that the town has to offer. So let's dive into Megaton. So one thing you'll quickly notice around here is in Megaton there's a lot of water leaks, and this town is surrounding an atomic bomb, an unexploded atomic bomb. So down here we have the Brass Lantern. This is a place where players and NPCs can get kind of food, and it just operates as a restaurant. So kind of cool, and a place I definitely kind of skipped over in normal playthroughs. Of course, the centerpiece of Megaton is the unexploded atomic bomb, and the cult, the Children of Atom. Then over here we just have a Brahmin and a guy sitting down. And I do have to say, I always thought Fallout 3's towns felt very lived in. Right? It feels like this is an actual community, and it has all of the necessities to keep that community going. And then over here we have the old man Nathan, who is a huge supporter of the Enclave and is a bit delusional about their true goals. Now, you can actually go into the Church of the Children of Atom, and I kind of forgot about all of this. I don't really think there's a whole lot to do in here, but you can kind of see their worship area, and then you can actually hack the computer, and you can kind of see some of their practices and their goals as a church, and it seems pretty harmless for the most part. Then upstairs we can see they sleep in a communal area. So kind of interesting. Obviously these people are very dedicated to their religion, and by the time of Fallout 4 we can see that this religion has kind of spread to other parts of the United States, right? It's obviously prevalent in the Commonwealth as well. Now, a lot of the private houses inside of Megaton are locked, and you have to either wait for the owner to go inside or you have to lockpick it. Now, if we go to the top of this hill where we saw yet another water leak, where there's actually a communal housing, which is a place I feel like most players would never go into or explore. But in here there's a lot of beds, and there's some supplies, and a lot of junk. And then the beds in here the player can also use. So I would imagine this place is more of a living area for newcomers and poor people within Megaton. So kind of interesting. If we go back outside, we can see there's a couch right next to it. I imagine that couch is quite gross now. But then we can go over here to the women's bathroom, and it's just a bathroom. However, that toilet was broken. Now, this house is really cool. I thought it's like a bus that is also operating as a support pillar for the rest of Megaton. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then if we go over to Jericho's house, it was actually unlocked for whatever reason, so we can kind of get an insight into a typical Fallout 3 house. But it just has all of the normal appliances and stuff that you would need to survive. If we go over here, this is the door to the empty house that can belong to the player character if you help the town disable the atomic bomb. Then we can go to the water processing plant, and we can see how Megaton's filtration system works. Then we have Craterside Supply, which is the general store run by Moira Brown, and she has the quest Wasteland Survival Guide. And obviously the Wasteland Survival Guide becomes a prominent book in the United States, making its way all the way to the Mojave Wasteland and Fallout New Vegas. Then of course we can go to the main bar area, and we have this conversation with a ghoul and Nova. And this is ideally, if you kind of follow the typical Fallout 3 pattern, this is the first time the player character would encounter a ghoul, and we get some funny dialogue.
Hey, smooth skin. Haven't you ever seen a ghoul before? Well, not all of us got the chance to hole up in a nice cushy vault when the bombs fell. A bunch of us got stuck out.
And of course, over here we have the infamous Mr. Burke, who will give us the task of arming and then detonating the atomic bomb for Mr. Tenpenny. So of course, I had to do it for the video. Now, if you return to Megaton, you can actually find all of the ruins, you can find the destroyed deputy, and also you learn that Moira Brown survives the explosion and becomes a ghoul. So when you detonate the nuke, you'll notice that if you're continuing the quest, Wasteland Survival Guide, the quest doesn't fail. So you can still complete the quest with Moira Brown, and she does not suspect you at all for destroying her home. So it's just kind of an interesting bit of information. And then you can see here that merchants still come to Megaton despite the fact it's destroyed. And then you can kind of peer into the former town, which is just radioactive, and it's obviously gone because we just detonated an atomic bomb. However, the good ending, and the ending I wanted to do for my playthrough, is where you confront Mr. Burke. He will try to kill the sheriff, and then you can kill him. And then the sheriff will survive, and upon disarming the atomic bomb, you will complete the quest, and then you can get your own house. Also, another interesting thing about the bomb is it actually has the Vault Tech logo on it, right? The Vault Company, which has always been a source of like controversy or debate or conspiracy if Vault Tech created the bombs. Of course, with the Fallout TV show, we have more confirmation of this. And your house comes with its own Mr. Handy, and you can also talk to Moira Brown in the supply shop to decorate your house to make it more lively and to get whatever you want inside of it. So pretty cool. And of course, you can put all of your bobbleheads inside, so that way you have a place to store them. Now, something I really wanted to show is one of my favorite Easter eggs. So in Lucas Sims' house, the sheriff, if he goes inside, you can then go inside too. Normally the door is locked. But if you go inside, you can go to the top of his house and you get a really good view of Megaton. You can kind of see where he's overwatching it. However, there is a glitch here to get outside of the map. And this leads to one of my favorite Easter eggs in all of Fallout. So kind of getting up here can be a little bit difficult, but just keep holding forward and jumping, and eventually you'll get up here like this. Obviously, I'm quick saving a lot because I don't want to like fall and then have to repeat all of this. But then if you jump, there's like an invisible wall, and you can go up here to where this guard is, right? So in Megaton, there's always this guy who's watching Megaton. And then if you manage to get up here and talk to him, he has some funny dialogue.
The more time I spend talking to you, the less I'm spending watching for raiders. How the hell did you get up here anyway?
So we can see that the game is aware the player characters should not be up here. Now, actually, in another playthrough, I killed him, and he actually has combat armor, which is kind of interesting and pretty good. Now, if you jump down, you can actually leave Megaton through, like, a glitch. And now we're in some Dr. Bosch territory. But there really isn't much to do out here. It's just very glitchy, and you can just kind of see what assets they included so that the town feels real from the inside, right? But we can see there's a lot of missing textures and stuff in the Capital Wasteland. Really not a whole lot to do out here, but just something I figured I would show since this is unexplored, right? Maybe a place a lot of players do not get to see. Now, around Megaton, there's a few interesting things of note. So there's that, like, sniper tower, and you can see it from the glitch as well. However, there's nobody inside the sniper tower, which is kind of interesting. Maybe they had bigger plans for it, or maybe it's just purely aesthetic. If we kind of go to the south of Megaton, you're going to find a bunch of mad Brahmin. I guess this is kind of a reference to mad cow disease. And there's a similar place in Fallout New Vegas where you can find Brahmin that will try to kill you at Mole Rat Ranch. And just north of Mole Rat Ranch in Fallout New Vegas, there's a similar situation. So, kind of interesting. Then if we head over to the west, it's kind of like southwest of Megaton, we can find a Protectron from the US military, and we can kill it for some ammunition. But I don't really know why it's over here. I tried searching around, but I couldn't find any like military goods, so it just seems to have wandered off quite a ways from wherever it was supposed to be. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any recommendations for the next episode of the Unexplored Capital Wasteland, please leave them in the comment section below. Also, locations in New Vegas are okay to mention. Thank you guys so much, and until next time. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. The Army of Otters here, and today we're going to be looking at Grayditch. Now, I decided to approach Grayditch from Megaton, but Grayditch is a fairly large city, and there's many ways to approach the city from. Now, for most people, they probably know this town because of the quest, Those. Anyways, here on the outskirts of Grayditch, we can find a lot of abandoned buildings. However, something that's kind of common throughout Fallout 3 is as you explore it, you will notice a lot of the buildings do not actually have real entrances. They're just purely aesthetic. You see a similar situation in Fallout New Vegas, but it's not nearly as common, mainly because the Mojave Wasteland is more barren than the Capital Wasteland. Now, another thing I noticed, though, is in Fallout 4, buildings become much more accessible. There's a lot more places that you can actually go inside. Here we have a crumbling building with nothing inside. Then in this building, there's actually the Talon Company mercs who decided to attack me when I entered. Now, I don't really know why the Talon Company mercs attacked me. In my last video, I mentioned that they're just hostile, but apparently it's based on your karma. If you have good karma, they will attack you, and if you had bad karma, they won't attack you. Which is kind of an interesting feature within Fallout 3. Definitely in Fallout 3, karma plays a much bigger role than it does in Fallout New Vegas. But after killing the mercs, there is not a whole lot in this building. However, there are some weapons and ammo. Continuing further into the city, I found this abandoned building with, again, no entrances, but some very kind of creepy looking statues on the outside of it. I don't know what these statues are or what this building was used for, but I definitely thought it was quite creepy, and it gave me an unsettling vibe. I do think the Capital Wasteland is much more creepy and eerie than the Mojave Wasteland. However, I don't think that is the atmosphere that Obsidian was trying to create when they made the Mojave. The Mojave is much less destroyed, it is more organized, it is more fractured, and it's more developed, whereas the Capital Wasteland is more eerie, more scary, and a lot more destroyed, as evident by Grayditch. As for some of the lore on Grayditch, Grayditch used to be a very affluent neighborhood of Washington, D.C. before the bombs fell, and now it is a settlement, although most of the people who had settled it are now dead due to the fire ants that have overrun the city. Now you can also get some pretty incredible views of Washington, D.C. Here we see the Washington Monument from Grayditch. Continuing to explore the area, I found this really weird building called the Outpost. And inside I found a bunch of ghouls who are apparently wastelanders who were hostile to me the second I opened the door. And there was also a super mutant here attacking the ghouls. So just a really wild kind of situation as I entered, and a war. Also, this wastelander glitched out, and I don't know what he was doing, but I ended up killing him pretty easily. And then over here we can see the wastelander managed to kill the super mutant, and then I could loot their bodies for some ammunition and weapons. Now, there wasn't a whole lot in here, but there was a scoped 44 Magnum, which is pretty good. Another thing in Fallout 3 is I forgot terminals can be booby-trapped, like so. When you try to activate them, they explode. I don't believe there is any such mechanic in Fallout New Vegas, but maybe there is and I'm just unaware of it. There's also a Nuka-Cola Quantum in here, which is pretty good. And like I said before, lots of ammunition. There's a very hard locked gate, and I couldn't find a key for it, so I could not open it, but it appears that there's nothing in there. Moving on to the more central part of Grayditch, we will find the fire ants, which is a part of the quest Those. Now, those might be one of the most famous side quests in Fallout 3 because of the way it starts via random encounter with Brian Wilkes, who will run up to you telling him that his town has been overrun and that he's worried about his father, and he asks you to go check on his father. I've already had that encounter in this playthrough, so Brian Wilkes is waiting in a bomb shelter, which we'll see here in a little bit. Now, I'm still a relatively low level in this playthrough of Fallout 3, so I really used all of my ammunition in order to complete the quest those. It's a pretty long quest, and if you didn't know, it's actually based on a movie called Them. So inside this Pulaski Preservation Shelter, we can find Brian after he's talked to us. I just shut him back in there, and then this is next to an abandoned diner. If we proceed to Brian Wilkes' house, we can find the corpse of his father, who was unfortunately killed by the fire ants, but we can see that he put up one hell of a fight. Now, across the street from this house is the Brandis house, which has a hard lock safe in it, but on one of the bodies we can actually find a key that will lead us to a missile launcher, which is found in a footlocker on the second floor. So some pretty good loot located in that house. But after finding Brian's dad, we can search his body and get the key for the shack, which is next to Brian's house. Inside this shack, there is a terminal, which if we read, we can learn about a scientist, Dr. Lesko, who was trying to manipulate the genetics of the ants. Now, after finding out this information, we will be tasked with finding Dr. Lesko. Now, one thing I really liked about this quest was the quest doesn't really tell you where to go. It tells you that the doctor is in Marigold Station, however, it doesn't tell you where, so that it's up to the player to explore and find it. I really like this kind of quest where it isn't so obvious about where to go. Now, you can also return to Brian and tell him that his father is dead. And after this, I decided to keep on clearing out the fire ants from Grayditch. And there's only one resident in Grayditch now, and something I was wondering is why don't the residents from Megaton move into Grayditch? It seems a lot safer than building a city around an atomic bomb. So as I mentioned earlier, the quest Those is based on a 1954 monster film called Them. And the premise of that movie is that during the Trinity test, the Manhattan Project, when they tested the atomic bomb, it led to mutations in ants, leading to giant man-eating ants in New Mexico. So we can see the obvious connection between those and them. So some pretty cool trivia about this quest. So moving on to Marigold Station, which we can see plastered on the bus stop there, we will find a pretty standard Fallout 3 subway system. Now in Fallout 3, the subways are all pretty copy and paste, so at least in my opinion, it makes it easy to get lost down here, so I have to carefully keep track of where I've been. Now this subway system is filled with those fire ants, and I found that it is quite difficult to fight them at close range because they will deal a lot of damage. So I took out my laser rifle, which was dealing the most damage to them, and I found it to be the most effective. Now in this subway we have what I assume would be like maintenance tunnels that we can follow down to the main area, and there's also some mine boxes filled with frag mines, which for me were very useful later on in this quest. But if we continue to make our way down, we will again have to continue to fight these damn fire ants. However, I did find that if you shoot their antenna, they will go crazy and attack anything that is nearby, which can be helpful if you're dealing with a lot of them in a small area. Now eventually you'll come out to this main central area where we can see the tracks and where people would board the subway. Now in here there's actually a holotape that will take us on another quest that is unrelated to those. Now this is an unmarked quest called Grady's Package, which will take us eventually to Girdershade, which is a settlement near the area where we start the Nuka-Cola challenge. So perhaps a video for another time. And on this holotape, he will talk about a key which Grady hid inside the train station. However, we don't need the key if you have average lockpicking, and I will show where to find the contents of the package which Grady is talking about. But besides that, there is not a whole lot in this main chamber, so I continued back the way I came, this time going the opposite direction. Now, in this vending machine, I found a Nuka-Cola Quantum. I don't know if that's a normal spawn or if it's just chance. And there's also some locked ammunition boxes. And throughout these tunnels, you can find various weapons and ammunition that can obviously help you on your playthrough. The subway is also littered with various skeletons, which adds to this kind of creepy feeling. Eventually, you'll notice an exit, and if we take that exit, we will find that we are now at Falls Church, and here it is on the mini-map. However, I didn't really want to investigate this area yet, maybe saving it for yet another video, but there was a raider out here that I took the ammo and also some more ammunition and mines on this table that I wanted to take. I tried to sleep, but there were too many enemies nearby. Going back into Marigold Station, there were some fire ants again that I had to take out. As we make our way towards Dr. Lesko, we will eventually find an easy locked door that we can use lockpicking or science to open. And inside this room, we will find a safe, which is the package which Grady was talking about in his holotape. And there's also some more frag mines inside of here, along with a first aid box that had some stim packs. So pretty good. And as we can see here, this is the safe, and upon opening the safe, you will find naughty nightwear. And after finding this naughty nightwear, a character named Lugnut will run up to you and ask you to give it to him.
I'm only gonna ask you this one time. Give me the naughty nightwear. All right. My mistake. It obviously belongs to you. Now, you just watch it, 'cause I won't be so nice next time.
Anyways, that's one of my favorite interactions in all of Fallout. It just was so random to me the first time I ever experienced it. Here you can see me where I damaged the fire ants' antennas, and they started fighting each other, which makes my life a lot easier. Now, also, Lugnut decided to get involved in the fight here and help me kill the fire ant, which was really nice of him. Then, after killing this fire ant, we can find the body of William Brandis, whose house has the missile launcher and is also a resident of Grayditch. So, obviously, he met his end in this subway tunnel. And there you can see the key on his corpse, which will unlock the footlocker, which contains the missile launcher back in Grayditch, inside of his house. Eventually, we will find Dr. Lesko, who will task us with killing the fire ant guardians, but not killing the fire ant queen, which can be a little bit difficult, but it was actually a lot easier than I had thought it would be. So after talking to Dr. Lesko, you will head into the caverns where the fire ant nest is. And you can see me here taking out the guardians. However, these guardians have a lot of health and they deal a lot of damage, especially to someone like me who is a lower level. However, I was able to use their antennas and use frag mines to effectively neutralize all of the guardians. The queen has a lot of health, so it wasn't really an issue when she got involved in the fight. And like I said before, I just frenzied the fire ants, which the frag mines do a very good job of, and the fire ants fought each other. Eventually, the queen killed off all of the guardians, and my job was finished. After killing all the ants, you should return to Dr. Lesko, and he will give you an injection. Now, you can choose two things, Ant Sight or Ant Might. Choosing Ant Sight grants you +1 perception, and choosing Ant Might grants you +1 strength. However, both will grant you +25% fire resistance. I took the +1 strength because I personally am not a big fan of the perception stat. After that, we can return to Brian Wilkes, who will tell us that the ants went crazy and started fighting each other and ran away. After this, we will be tasked with finding Brian a new home. Now, there's a variety of places we can send him, including Little Lamplight and even being a slave, but the best option is to send him to his aunt, Vera Weatherly, who is located in Rivet City, and she runs the hotel in Rivet City. This will grant the player a large amount of karma, and it'll make Brian happy, as we can see here.
You really found her? I can't believe everything you've done for me.
And there you have it, folks. Grayditch. Now, those is one of my favorite quests in Fallout 3, so I wanted to highlight it for the purpose of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video, and if you have any recommendations for the next place of the Unexplored Capital Wasteland, please post them in the comment section below. Until next time.
Hello there, fella. Good to meet you. Name's Smith, Jack Smith. Welcome to Andale, the best little town in Virginia. Not here, not in Andale, no sir. The great Commonwealth of Virginia is alive and well. In fact, we just voted ourselves a new governor. The adults walked right on down to the polling location and dropped ballots into the box. How do you think it works? Yes, sir, it's every American's civic duty to cast his vote for his favorite Republican candidate. Am I right?
My mom cooks and cleans the house, and my dad goes to work with Mr. Wilson. They work in the basement, or sometimes in Mr. Wilson's shed. Dad says that when I'm older, I'll come to work with him, and we're in the family business.
I feed my family, and I love my wife and daughter. What else more is there to life, stranger? Family first, and any man who says anything different is saying something wrong. And you should hit that man with a stick.
Well, hello. Welcome to Andale, winner of the Best Town in the USA contest. The best town in the USA. It's the best little town there is. We don't have a care in the world here.
Nothing wrong with being friendly, but these folks aren't just friendly. They're killers. They're killers. Every one of them. Run! Get out while you can. Don't believe me, do you? Just check out the basement or that shed. There's a reason they're locked.
They work in the basement, or sometimes in Mr. Wilson's shed. Dad says that when I'm older, I'll come to work with him, and we're in the family business.
Well, hello. Welcome to Andale, winner of the Best Town in the USA contest.
Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be taking an in-depth look at the city of Andale. This video was recommended to me by TCB2324, along with Bob Mew. So thank you both so much for your recommendations and support of this channel. Now, as is the case with so many locations in Fallout, Andale is based on a real-world location, that being Annandale, Virginia. Now, in the Fallout universe, Annandale was the original name for the town, but sometime during the long history following the Great War, the name was simply shortened to Andale. When the player first arrives in Andale, we can immediately tell that something is wrong. Everybody is extremely polite, extremely friendly, and they adhere to 21st century values in government, something that is absent from the world of post-apocalyptic America. So let's investigate further to find out what is going on in this small neighborhood. So here is the location of Andale on the Pip-Boy, just southwest of the Citadel, located in the southern part of the map, almost in the middle. Now, on the northern end of the city, we have an abandoned gas station, along with several destroyed homes. However, we will find that there are two homes that are kind of in disrepair, but are obviously still in a good enough condition for people to live in. The first house is the Smith residence, where we can find three people: Jack Smith, Linda Smith, and Junior Smith. These three people make up the first family we will talk about. Jack Smith will give you a nice little introduction to Andale, explaining how they still vote for governor and are still part of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Junior Smith, his son, will talk about the family business, but that he doesn't know much about what's going on in Andale and how he wishes there were other children, so that he could have friends. Also, he will mention that Jenny Wilson, the neighbor's daughter, and who is actually his cousin, is supposed to be his wife in the future. Then Linda will talk about how great her life is and how great Andale is. Now, they are very friendly to the player character, but you can definitely tell that something is not right, and the player can even accuse Jack of being insane, because obviously the Commonwealth of Virginia is gone. And if you approach the locked door, Jack will get angry at you. Now we will head across the street to the Wilson residence, and another thing worth noting is that both the Smith and Wilson residences have the Enclave radio playing, obviously an indication of their loyalty to the old world America. Now in the Wilson household we will find Bill Wilson, who will talk about the importance of family and be very friendly to the player. We can also find Martha Wilson, who obviously loves Andale, and she talks about her amazing life here. However, she does mention that nobody really asked her her own opinion, so she was surprised when you ask her what does she think about Andale. And then finally I found their daughter, Jenny Wilson, roaming around outside. However, she has no dialogue options with the player. And then over here we can find a very hard locked shed, but we cannot get in there without very high lockpicking. Now over here we can find one more residence, and that is Old Man Harris. And Old Man Harris is the first person to give us some actual clues as to what is going on here.
Get in here. What are you doing in this town? Get out! Get out while you can! Well, they're not. They're killers. Every one of them. Run! Get out while you can! Don't believe me, do you? Just check out the basement or that shed. There's a reason they're locked. Go! Get out of here before they get you too!
So after talking to Old Man Harris, you'll start the quest, Our Little Secret, and basically you have three courses of action now. One, you can pick the lock if you have a high enough lockpick level. You can pickpocket the key from Mr. Smith or Mr. Wilson, or you can actually steal the key off of a table next to their beds on the nightstand. I opted to pickpocket because even though these people are considered evil by the game, stealing anything will result in negative karma. So you can see the key is on that nightstand, but I went over here and decided to pickpocket. And the reason is if you pickpocket in Fallout 3, it is not considered evil karma if that person is evil. As I said earlier, these people are considered evil, so pickpocketing them is okay, but stealing from them is not okay. A very quirky mechanic in Fallout 3. And then I decided to go into the shed where all of the killing is taking place, and then I decided to leave real quick, because normally when you leave, you will be confronted. But I found out if you're fast enough, you will not be confronted by the town. Anyways, inside we discover several human bodies that are now skeletons, and we can pretty much see that what is going on here is cannibalism. That these two families have been eating people for a very long time. And in other places of Fallout 3, people will tell you to avoid Andale because people who enter Andale do not come back. And we can see why here. And another dark secret about this town is there is a lot of incest going on. So the Wilson family and the Smith family have been breeding with each other for hundreds of years, which means they probably have who knows what kind of genetic deficiencies. But something else that is kind of gross, for example, Old Man Harris is part of the Smith family, so they're all related. And then upon leaving the shack, you will be confronted by the entire town, and you have two options. You can either be hostile and turn on them, or you can try to convince them that you're okay with what's going on.
Hey there, stranger. I got something I want to talk to you about. I couldn't help but notice that you were poking around in Bill's shed. So, did you find what you were looking for in there? And did you see anything unexpected there? And do you have any thoughts on that? I'm disappointed, friend, but that's your prerogative. If you don't want to enjoy our town, we certainly don't want you here. I'm sorry that you didn't enjoy your stay, but a man does need to feed his family. Nothing personal.
So after that dialogue ended somewhat humorously and badly, I decided to target Jack Smith and put all of my intention on killing him. And once I killed him, I actually just kind of ran away because the two wives who are attacking me do not have any guns. So it'd be easy to lure them away, as you can see here, and then I could kill them. Now, the person who gave me the most difficulty was actually Mr. Wilson, who was using his scoped 44 Magnum, and it does a lot of damage. So I had to I tried fighting from long range, that didn't work. So then I decided to rush him with my hunting rifle, and then he ducked right at the perfect time, avoiding a killing shot, but I was able to use VATS and kill him, nearly being killed myself. Nonetheless, a very fun battle that ended up taking place here, and I do have to say, I do think Fallout 3 is more difficult than Fallout New Vegas, mainly because I'm just not as familiar with the game as New Vegas. If we go talk to Old Man Harris, we can get some information about him and the future of the town.
It had been my family, but it had to be done. I was like them for so many years. I can't even talk about it. The only thing I can do is try to raise these kids and make Andale into a decent place. They'll stay here with me, and I'll raise them myself. It's a shame that they have to grow up without their parents. But to tell you the truth, it's a lot better than growing up with their parents, everything considered. Better an orphan than a cannibal, I guess? We'll do our best is what we'll do. Me and the kids here in Andale. What's left of it, anyway. It'll be hard going, but we'll do the best we can. I just hope that one day these kids will grow up to do some good for this place after all the evil that's been done here. Sure did. Can't say that I'm proud of it, though. It was all just normal. It's what we all did. I didn't ever think much about it. I married Gladys, just like every boy in Andale married the girl closest to his age. We had Linda, and she grew up to marry Jack. It wasn't until Gladys died that I thought about what went on around here. So many people over the years, hundreds, thousands maybe. But what could I do? I'm just an old man. But you ended it. Bless you.
So we learned that Old Man Harris is the father of Linda Smith and the grandfather of Junior. Then we can go to the basement of the Smiths, and we can uncover some very dark secrets because we have some fresh bodies down in this basement. In the shed, it is just skeletons and some innards, but down here we have some full-fledged fresh bodies that were obviously being cut up. In all of the refrigerators, we can find 10 pieces of strange meat. These just look like skewers of meat, and we can assume that it's human meat. Also, while you're down here, there's a copy of Grognak the Barbarian, so make sure to pick that up. Now, before moving on to final thoughts and closing, there are some interesting areas around Andale. So if we go directly north from the town, we can find a crashed truck underneath the highway. Inside the truck, we can find a makeshift bed, which I thought was pretty cool. However, we cannot use it, the player. There's also a first aid box and a Nuka-Cola Quantum, which of course is really good. Then if we head just to the east, the northeast of Andale, or east of the truck, we can find a concrete treehouse, along with some raiders. I actually entered a pretty funny fight with these raiders, because as I was fighting them, I accidentally shot the truck, which would trigger an explosion. So I walked away from the truck, and I killed this raider from underneath the concrete treehouse. And as I killed him, the truck exploded and killed the other raider and nearly killed me. I only have 1 HP left, as you can see. so I got incredibly lucky. But anyways, in this tree house, there's an average locked footlocker, along with a copy of Tales of a Junktown Jerky Vendor. So, pretty good. And then if we go east of Andale, just past the shack where they were killing people, we can find a truck on the side of the road with a lot of empty boxes inside of it. And in the back of the truck, on a footlocker, we can find a copy of Dean's Electronics. So, pretty good finds around the town of Andale. So, there we have the city of Andale, a pretty dark place within Fallout 3. Now, I wanted to say, if you actually side with the people of Andale, the Wilsons and the Smiths, they will accept you and reward you with a strange meat pie. And then if you choose the good ending, or the so-called good ending, then Old Man Harris will raise the 2 children, and the other adults will be dead. Now, there is kind of a moral conflict here about Old Man Harris. Should he be punished for his crimes as well? Obviously, he partook in the killings for a long time, and even admits that his family has killed hundreds, if not thousands, of people. So a really dark issue, and I don't know if I have a good solution, because on one hand, he should probably raise the children and maybe turn Andale into a good place, but on the other hand, he is a criminal. He committed crimes against humanity. I don't know what the best answer is. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this episode of the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. I've been wanting to make this series more, but my focus has just been on New Vegas. But if you have any recommendations for Fallout 3, please leave them in the comments section below, and we will get to it eventually. And, as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be checking out Jocko's Pop and Gas Stop. Now this is a pretty remote location on the western part of the Capital Wasteland, near Grayditch. Now, the reason I made this video was because I was on my way to Grayditch and I had a pretty amazing and cool scripted event happen to me here, and I think it's something that could be easily missed, so I wanted to point it out, as well as just share a kind of small but yet interesting location in Fallout 3. So, let's jump into it. And as you can see here on the Pip-Boy, here is the location of Jocko's Pop and Gas Stop on the western portion of the map. So a lot of the time when I'm making one of these videos, I kind of just explore around the map, and I'll scout out different areas and see what I can find, and that's what I was doing here, and all of a sudden I saw this vertibird coming down towards me, landing, and I was like, okay, I don't know what's happening, but I decided to go ahead and record it. And next thing I know, all of these Enclave soldiers are getting out of the vertibird in their armor, and I was like, holy shit. This is going to be difficult because I'm still at pretty low level in my Fallout 3 playthrough. So as you saw earlier, I placed down some mines, which actually worked out pretty well. I was able to eliminate one of the soldiers, and then from the high ground, I was able to get the rest of them using my scoped 44 Magnum. So, some pretty clever tactics on my part, if I do say so myself, in order to kill out a lot of these soldiers. But after I killed what I thought were all the enemies, the music kept playing, like the battle music, and later more Enclave soldiers came and attacked me. So as you can see, it's daytime now, and I was filming a scenic shot when all of a sudden I got attacked by the Enclave yet again. So I don't know if the vertibird landed somewhere else and dropped off the soldiers there, or what happened, but more Enclave came, and that's why I think the music never stopped, the battle music. But I was kind of panicking because I was running low on ammunition. I saw a Yaogwai nearby, a mutated bear, so I shot it, hoping it would come over and fight the Enclave soldiers, which I think it might have. However, as I was making my way up the highway the second time, there were now giant soldier ants. So, like, this was just a really wild battle with so many elements happening, and it was a ton of fun. It is one of the coolest Fallout 3 experiences I can remember. So while the Enclave soldiers were distracted by the Yaogwai, I took out these soldier ants. and I found out there was a little bit of a glitch in the pathing at the end of this highway. As you can see, the ants, for whatever reason, did not attack me directly. Instead, they tried to go around whenever I went over this little lip on the highway. So for some reason, the ants or AI does not want to go over that lip, which helped me out. As I was making my way back down, I really panicked because the Enclave soldiers were coming up towards me on the highway. The previous time, at nighttime, when I killed the Enclave, that didn't happen. However, I found out the hunting rifle is pretty OP, as I was able to take out the Enclave soldiers pretty easily using the hunting rifle. But as you can see here, I have very low health, but thankfully we were able to take out the soldiers before they were able to take out me. But this was just one of the coolest battles and encounters I've ever had in Fallout. And I found out that after completing the Waters of Life quest, a vertibird will always drop off Enclave troops at this location once you exit the shack. And you can see the shack here, and we'll go inside after I got in a fight with a shopping cart. So inside this shack, there's actually some pretty decent loot, even though it's pretty small. So there's of course some bottle caps, but not very many, but we can find a copy of Nikola Tesla and you, along with a bottle cap mine schematic, so we can craft bottle cap mines, and a bottle of Nuka-Cola Quantum, which is of course important for the Nuka-Cola Quantum collection quest. But besides that, there's not a whole lot in the shack. There were some railway spikes within that one metal box, but not much else. Outside, there's a gas station and a billboard advertising the vaults, telling you to reserve your vault today. Nothing nefarious going on within those vaults, of course. Then this other billboard on the mountain, I actually found out, is painted over by the Enclave. Behind it appears to be some kind of space ad, maybe, but now the Enclave have actually painted over the billboard and putting up propaganda, which I thought was pretty cool and pretty interesting. Alright everyone, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. This was a really fun video to make, and it was kind of impromptu and just a location I had a lot of fun with, which is kind of the original intention of this series. Obviously on the Unexplored Mojave, the series has morphed and changed a lot, and I'm very satisfied with what it's become, and I'm very excited to see where this journey on Fallout 3 will take us. So, as always guys, thank you so much for watching. If you have any recommendations for the next video, please post them in the comment section below, and, as always, until next time.
My friend, you are at the ass end of the Capital Wasteland. If it weren't for Sierra, I'd be out of here. One thing I can tell you is stay the hell away from the Dunwich Building to the south. That place is bad mojo. I don't know what that place is about, but I hear about weird shit going on.
Welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Situated in the rolling hills of the southwestern Capital Wasteland sits the Dunwich Building. Before the Great War, this building was owned by Dunwich Borers LLC, which was a pre-war company specializing in acoustic borers used for excavation and mining. But today, over 200 years after the Great War, such history is a trivial matter. In the nearby village of Girdershade is Ronald Lauren, who gives us a warning about the horrors within this building.
My friend, you are at the ass end of the Capital Wasteland. If it weren't for Sierra, I'd be out of here. One thing I can tell you is stay the hell away from the Dunwich Building to the south. That place is bad mojo. I don't know what that place is about, but I hear about weird shit going on.
The Dunwich Building is infamous, not only within the world of Fallout, but also within the real world. So, let us find out what lies in this building and why it has become so famous. If you are brave enough to scavenge through the ruins, the location is in the southwestern part of the map. As you approach, you encounter a fairly ordinary building, but upon entering, you're greeted with a very graphic scene: a dead body over ammunition crates. Inside the ammunition box, we can find ammo and some frag grenades, which will no doubt be useful for a newer player such as ourselves. Staring down the hallway into the black abyss gives us an overwhelming sense of dread. In the nearby room lies several knocked down tables, a dead body, along with several audio logs detailing the miserable experiences of Jamie.
Why the hell would he come all the way out here? Dad's been a little nuts for some time now, but not like this. Leaving me in that crappy old hospital without waking me. Without a goddamn flashlight. I made enough selling the meds we scrounged to have kept us both fed at the colony for weeks. Now I'm almost out of rations, my shoes are pretty much destroyed, and I'm still chasing the old coot. By my last reckoning, he was headed south. Maybe I shouldn't have waited so damn long to start tracking him. Trail's gone cold. Gonna wander with these guys a while. They say they wander the area. Maybe somebody's seen Dad. These guys aren't who I thought they were. Jesus, they killed that family for a sack of rotten vegetables. Getting out of here next chance I can without catching a bullet. We had a caravan today. Trev didn't see the kid and got popped. I took care of Tawny right then and put one in Thor before he saw her fall. That earned me some grub from the traders. Even better, they saw Dad. He was in pretty rough shape and still has the goddamn book. Trader says it gave him the creeps. Me too. But it's good to know he's still alive. Still headed south. He must have been trying to trap food here. I recognize his snares. I can make out a building on the horizon. That must be where he headed. If not, at least I get a roof tonight.
From these logs, we can gather that Jamie was a man searching for his father, who was a ranger, some kind of famous soldier from the western part of post-apocalyptic America. And we can also gather that Jamie's father was driven here by some kind of book, which also drove Jamie's father crazy. And in Jamie's search for his family, for his father, he was led here to the decaying ruins of the Dunwich Building, which serves as a gateway to hell. Our first encounter with the ghouls only serves as a painful reminder that we always must be on our toes when exploring the ruins of the Dunwich Building. While ghosts, cryptids, and the occult definitely are within the walls of the Dunwich Building, they are the least of our worries compared to that of the feral ghouls. Within this room we can find another entry from our friend Jamie.
Don't like the look of this place. Don't like the smell. Gives me the creeps. Don't want to risk a shot at the crows till I know what's in there. Sneaking in tonight.
Across the hallway, we find blood splattered on the walls and floor, a broken down door, and a dead body, an assault rifle at his hands. Something terrible happened here. We can find ammunition on the ground, frag grenades in a box, but no clue as to what happened. We're only left to imagine that this man was killed by several ghouls, and his body was left for the rad roaches. A Nuka-Cola Quantum, a rare find within the Capital Wasteland, sits on the shelf. As we make our way upstairs, we are confronted with yet more ghouls. Their screaming can be heard echoing throughout the Dunwich Building. And on this floor, we can find the first signs that there's more than just ghouls within the walls of the Dunwich Building. As the body disintegrates, we're only left to wonder who or what opened this door. We may never know. Continuing along this floor, we can find booby-trapped terminals. Who booby-trapped them and why? We may never know. Not only are the ghouls a threat, but we have to wonder if the building itself might try to kill us. A collapse is possible at any second. The confusing maze of hallways, rooms with an empty bookshelf. It leaves us wondering what was happening in this building before the Great War. And as we look down below, we have to move forward. No matter how much our mind might tell us to go back, we have to investigate further. There has to be something down here. As we move into this next room, we find it riddled with blood. A skeleton, a face lays on the ground. As we interact, body parts pop out of nowhere. Something tragic and haunting has happened here. Who knows what? And in this room, we can find yet another journal entry from our good friend Jamie.
Raiders told spook stories about zombies in the ruins. Never saw anything like that where I come from. But Lord help me, they're real. Not quite what Thor said, but close. These things look... I think they really used to be people.
And that's when we make a terrifying discovery. We're only in the lobby of the Dunwich Building. We now enter a new section, known only as the Forsaken Ruins. We make our way up a staircase. This place is clearly falling apart. Clearly something paranormal is happening within the walls. And there we suffer a close call with a glowing one. We loot the dead bodies, and we have to use some of our very valuable stim packs, as we injured our leg in the encounter. We then head over to a terminal, where we find another journal from our friend Jamie.
God help me. I found Dad today. I didn't think it was him, but... the face. The zombies didn't touch him. I think he was becoming like them. Didn't know it was him until I found that old book near him. No more killing. I just need to go. Can't forget the book. All I have left of him. It's warm against the stone. just rest a while.
Next to Jamie's journal, there is also a locked terminal. Upon hacking and accessing the terminal, we can make some truly terrifying discoveries. First, we can learn that this terminal uses speech-to-text function, recording sounds that it hears around it. The first entry is innocent enough. It reads, "Memo to sales staff. In recognition of an exemplary quarter, Mr. Statham has authorized me to release sales staff early for the holidays." It was no easy task to release a new acoustic bore to a market used to conventional bit bore drilling systems. But thanks to your hard work and acoustic bore drills are setting a new standard in the excavation industry. Thanks to your many private sales and procurement of government contracts, we'll all be in the black for the foreseeable future. Happy holidays from Mr. Statham and Dunwich Bores. Now, get home to your families. This entry, recorded on October 18th, was 5 days away before October 23rd. An unintelligible sound echoes in the building, the sound of nuclear fire raining down upon Washington, D.C. And in the next journal entry, we can even see more sounds from the end of the world. The next journal entry, dated in 2134, about 150 years before the current year of 2277, reads, "What the hell was that? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Where is it? Where? Safe and sound. Jesus, they bled so much, but I kept it clean. Clean. Shit. More. Got to move. Got to keep it safe." Who is this and what happened, we may never know. A new journal entry, 1 month later. My skin. Barely any left. One of them now. But they know I still have it. Stay back. Back, you. You and you too. Over there. Yes. One of us. Ugg Qualtoth is returned. We may not know who Ugg Qualtoth is, but it appears to be supernatural. The final journal entry, a few days after the last one, reads, Ugg Qualtoth. I came, back this time. Deep temple, no light, no flesh. Deep temple, born deep temple died. Ugg Qualtoth again. Returned. And then it ends. The memory capacity has been reached within the computer, and the recording stopped. Whoever Ugg Qualtoth is forgotten. Or so we hope. We have little time to gather what we just read as a ghoul runs into the room and we have to kill him. So many ghouls within this building, so much death and destruction and horrors within. On the second floor, we can find another locked door. This door, an average lock. Upon opening, we are encountered with more paranormal activity. Something or someone is very angry at us. They do not want to be disturbed. A dead body lies on the ground in front of a computer with several ammunition crates and a medical box to our right. Some useful loot as we continue through this hell house. We mustn't wonder for long what happened to this dead man. Upon hacking the terminal, we can find out what his fate was. We find a data entry which reads, "Here I am, trapped in a room by myself, typing on a terminal, trying to keep myself busy. Hell, trying to keep myself sane. I don't know what it is about this place, but I want to get out of here. Yeah, get out of here. I can't even bring myself to open that damn door again. I hear those things wandering around outside, sniffing, screaming, doing whatever they do. When I first got here, I thought the place was abandoned and went around looking for anything to scavenge. 5 minutes later, I'm in this room, scared half out of my mind. Things started chasing me. I fired a few shots, missed, and ran through the darkness. Ah, shit. Told old Billy to meet me here and bring some extra ammunition and grenades. That was 3 days ago. Poor guy probably didn't make it too far. Those things better have given him a quick death. Listen to me, babbling like a damn fool. Billy's all right. I'll just stick here until those things go away and meet up with him. Ha! What a story I have for him. As we continue our trek through the second floor, we're confronted with another ghoul. They don't stop. They just keep coming. Their screams a constant reminder that ghosts are the least of our worries. Inside a small supply closet, we can find a medical box, no doubt useful for our journey, along with a copy of Dean's Electronics. A nice little reward for our efforts so far. Now we can finally leave this area, and we will continue towards the back of the building. After navigating our way through a maze of hallways, we find a room in complete disrepair. A ghoul confronts us at the beginning and tries to kill us, but he ultimately fails. Due to the decayed state of this room, the several ghouls below us are unable to make their way up to us. We use the various frag grenades we have found in our journey in order to take them out. It proves to be very effective, but some of the ghouls are smart and are able to run away, forcing us to come down to face them. On this level, we can also find a bathroom with some jet, drugs, and a toilet. No doubt someone was having a good time. We make our way down to the first floor of this room, and we have to kill those ghouls which tried to evade our grenades. This collapsed room serves as an eerie reminder that, despite the fact this place is filled with ghouls, ghosts, and God knows what else, the building itself is probably the biggest threat to us. And finally, we find an exit, but not to salvation, but to hell. The virulent underchambers. Miraculously on this desk lies Jamie's last journal entry.
Sharp knife. Sharp knife to send him to Deep Temple. Flay and say my words. Abdul comes again on the feast of the weaker. Feast for the Deep Temple. Born again. Here. Al-Hazared. Yes. Yes.
What was that about? Was it related to Ugg Gwaltoth? We can only find out by descending through the collapsed ruins of the Dunwich Building. We hear running below, screaming from the ghouls, and we can find several waiting for us to make our way down. Thankfully, we are able to take out many of them from the floor above, making it one of the easiest battles we've encountered yet within the Dunwich Building. We make our way through what we can only assume are old maintenance tunnels. Winding, confusing. Who knows what they were built for over 200 years ago. But they descend further, further into the ground, We can hear more screaming from what appears to be another ghoul. Medical supplies, very useful at this point in our journey. As we enter the next room, we can find yet another ghoul waiting for us. And then we are confronted with a door to where? As we open, we hear a weird voice speaking to us. We pull out our gun as we see ghouls coming out of the ground, surrounding a statue. We open fire into a pool of the undead. Hoping that our shots hit, we are forced to retreat as the ghouls are simply too overwhelming. After this fight, we can investigate the shrine further. A dead body. Our friend Jamie. God knows what happened to him. This obelisk, what is it? Who is it? We may never know. What can be for certain, though, is that the Dunwich Company had a role to play. They are somehow connected to all of this madness. How are they connected? Who is Akquatoth? Well, these are questions for a different day, but for now we can rest easy, knowing that the Dunwich Building has been cleared out. The ghouls within are dead, however, the undead will remain forever. On the top of this shrine, we learn that it emits radiation at a rate of 20 rads a second, easily enough to kill a man, kill hundreds, thousands of men. So, why? We may never know. As we finally reach the end, we are given our reward, a melee bobblehead. Was it worth it? It's hard to say, but at least we can hopefully save the lives of anyone else who may dare venture into this place in the foreseeable future. Upon seeing the exit, we have an overwhelming sense of joy. Alright everyone, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. This was a special episode intended for Halloween, but I also wanted it to stand the test of time and to serve as documentation of the Dunwich Building. These days there is so much information about Dunwich and the owners on YouTube and the rest of the internet that it's sort of an iceberg. But this was a really fun location to explore, to see the origins of the Dunwich story. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. If you have any recommendations for the next video, please post them in the comments section below. And as always, until next time. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. The Army of Otters here, and today we're going to be checking out the F. Scott Key Trail and Campground. Now this is located on the far western part of the map. It is pretty remote out here. There is not a whole lot over here, and this is next to the Dunwich Building, and actually when I stumbled upon this, I was trying to get scenic shots of the Dunwich Building. But this location has some pretty interesting things, so let's check it out. Alright, and as you can see here, here's the location, like I said, far southwestern part of the map, next to the Dunwich Building. Now, as you approach the camp, you gotta be careful because there's actually a death claw here which I was not prepared for. There's also some mole rats and a rat scorpion that will come and join the fight. Now, at first I was like, mole rats are fine. They're a little bit cute. They're easy to kill. No problem. But I almost got killed there by that Deathclaw. I was very fortunate, and then I started freaking out, and the Deathclaw started chasing me around, and I got very lucky during this fight that right here the Deathclaw hits me, and somehow I only have 1 HP left, and I survived. At this point, I was like, I'll probably just die to this mole rat, but I was able to pause the game, heal up a little bit, but I didn't have much healing because I'm still pretty new to Fallout 3. I'm around a level 10 or 8 at this point. And this mole rat and everyone else ran away because the pathing is glitchy here and they couldn't reach me. So I got very, very lucky that I could take a break from the battle. The mole rat was over there. And then I was able to kill the rat scorpion and slowly take out all the enemies in order to deal with the Deathclaw. After taking out the rad scorpion, I was able to then come back and hide again. However, this mole rat tried to kill me. I was able to take him out, and the Deathclaw ran away pretty far. Here I was trying to shoot the Deathclaw a bit, but he ran away again, and then I was able to take out the other mole rat. So then it was just me and the Deathclaw, and for whatever reason, the Deathclaw's pathing got really messed up, so he just kept running back and forth in this area over here. So from far away, I used my laser pistol, and I just tried to drain his health, albeit very slowly. But this was the first Deathclaw I had faced in Fallout 3, so I thought that I was pretty satisfied with this tactic. And then finally, he charged me, but too little too late. And that's the story about how I overcame the battle of F. Scott Key's Campground. Now, there's actually a Wastelander here. You can see him here, but now he's dead. And he is alive before the encounter with the Deathclaw, but he almost always dies in the encounter. It is possible to save him, but very difficult to do. Then we just have some picnic tables with a lot of dead bodies at them. Assumingly these people were here when the atomic bombs went off, and they all died. However, I guess that's 200 years of them decomposing, so I don't know how long a skeleton would last out of the ground. Over here we can also find a copy of Duck and Cover, and inside the trailer, if you didn't see, there was a copy of a schematic for the Deathclaw Gauntlet. Over here we can see a scenic overlook sign, which are also very prominent in Fallout New Vegas. In the back area of this camp, we can find some fungus and a pond that would appear radiated, but there's no radiation in this area. Now, in case you didn't notice, this campground is named after Francis Scott Key, who was the man who wrote the Star-Spangled Banner, which is the national anthem of the United States. Now, from what I can tell, this campground does not exist in real life, so it was added into the game by Bethesda, and they decided to name it after Francis Scott Key. So some interesting information about this location. Alright guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Unexplored Capital Wasteland, and as always, until next time. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be checking out Greener Pastures disposal site. This is a radioactive dump located in the northeast region of the Capital Wasteland. There are several mutated creatures that can be found here, including Yaogwai, rad scorpions, and rad roaches. This is an area I just stumbled across while playing. However, this area actually has some lore implications. Within Fallout New Vegas in the Dead Money DLC, we can find a terminal which reads, "As shoddy as the support beams are for most of these buildings, the ventilation system's worse, and the problems they have over at Puseta, sure, when you count our bonuses, it's good, but not when workers are coughing to death. Hate to see what this place spits out if someone let the ventilation system chug along for a few years. We'd have another Greener Pastures on our hand. Easy, and a pile of bodies beyond it." So as we can see, this location has some real-world implications within the Fallout universe, being pretty famous, maybe close to a Chernobyl, or within the United States, perhaps a Rocky Mountain arsenal. So let's check out the location. As I said earlier, it's located in the northeastern part of the Washington metropolitan area near the very famous Minefield. Now, as you can see earlier, I actually saw a pack of Brahmin walking across, which is really cool, and the Brahmin will just hang out and graze within the radiation. We can also find various signs posted around warning people about the radiation and that people without hazmat suits should not enter the area. Now, compared to some other areas in Fallout though, there's not too much radiation here, so you can go in without any kind of radiation suit and you'll be fine. Now, we can actually find a big book of science within the back of this overturned truck, and there's also a dead scientist, and you can take his radiation suit if you so wish. And there's going to be a lot of trucks here that were probably here during the time of the Great War, and there's more radiation signs riddled across this wasteland. Now, over here we can find some kind of building, probably a management building for the dump site, and inside you'll find some rad roaches. And there is some pretty darn good loot in here. So, as you can see here, there is a first aid box with some stim packs, which is always very helpful. Also, there's a Nuka-Cola Quantum, which is always helpful. And we have a safe full of caps and ammunition, which is always helpful. On the desk, we can find a bobblehead, the agility bobblehead, which is really good, increasing your agility point by 1. This terminal is actually locked, and it's supposed to open the safe, but there is a glitch where the safe will be unlocked sometimes, as was the case in my playthrough. But besides that, there's not a whole lot of loot inside this building, but on the workbench we can find a bottle cap mine, which is pretty useful in a sticky situation. As I exited the building, there was a rad scorpion just waiting to greet me, and after killing him, I was able to head to the northeastern part of this disposal site, where we can find a makeshift cabin or some kind of hut, and if we enter we can find a dead wastelander, probably dead from radiation poisoning. Underneath the bed we can find a book called the DC Journal of Internal Medicine, which will raise your medicine skill by 1. Now, interestingly enough, even though this place is owned by a wastelander, we can actually sleep in here, assumingly because he is dead. And on the sign, we can see a danger biohazard warning sign, obviously warning people about the dangers of this area. And there you have it, the Greener Pastures waste disposal site. Obviously, this was used during the pre-war area for dumping some kind of nuclear waste. Obviously, especially in the United States, nuclear power and nuclear weapons were very important. And also, this area is actually quite beautiful. It has a lot of nature. It's very much untouched by any kind of industry. Although on the top of the mountain there, you can see a factory. Kind of a very beautiful scene. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any recommendations for the next video, please post them in the comment section below. And as always, until next time.
There's one place you find on a tourist map of DC, and its lovely suburbs. And that's the cozy little villa known as Old Olney. Ah, but you locals, you know the place, am I right? It's become a veritable wasteland legend. Why? 'Cause it's filled with goddamn death claws. I met a guy once. Name was Johnny 12 Fingers. Had one arm. Turns out the other one was ripped off while he was scavenging in Deathclaw Central. Lucky he made it out alive.
If that dog would have killed me, I would have actually cried. Man, I think that encounter perfectly encapsulated my entire experience at this location. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. The Army of Otters here, and today we're going to be checking out Old Olney, albeit we are a very low level. Now, Old Olney is one of the most difficult locations within Fallout 3, but I decided to go ahead and try and tackle it early just to get out of the way, and what happened was a completely unforgettable experience, and one of the most fun memories I have in Fallout 3. So let's dive into Old Olney. Now, Old Olney is located in the northeast corner of the Capital Wasteland. It's pretty close to Vault 92 and the Republic of Dave. Now, on the southern part of Old Olney, we can find a residential area. There are several burnt-out houses that have obviously decayed after the years following the Great War. Perhaps they were destroyed in the immediate aftermath of the Great War, or perhaps they just crumbled over time. Doesn't really matter to us, though, as there's no real loot within any of these buildings. However, up by this house, I found a lawnmower, and you can actually loot the lawnmower and get a lawnmower blade, which I thought was pretty cool. Since I'm more familiar with Fallout New Vegas, you can get these blades pretty easily, but I've never actually known where they come from. Here we can see the source in Fallout 3. Now, obviously, as you saw in the beginning, this place is famous for death claws, and oh boy, are there a lot of death claws. And since I'm a low level, this really forced me to try and get creative using grenades and landmines, weapons I don't typically use in Fallout, in order to try and kill the death claws. So I actually really enjoyed this challenge, trying to use anything at my disposal in order to combat the death claws. And during this, I learned two things. One, bottle cap mines are seriously overpowered. It is something I definitely underestimate in the first Fallout 3 playthroughs I ever did as a kid. And also that Deathclaw pathing is very glitchy in this game. I think in Fallout New Vegas, the Deathclaw pathing seems much better. Deathclaws get caught on a lot of things in this game. Doorways, and they have trouble getting to the player if the player is elevated. So as you can see here, the Deathclaw is just kind of walking around in circles. He finally got inside, but since I crippled his leg, he wasn't able to do anything to me. And then we were down one Deathclaw. But don't you worry, there are plenty more Deathclaws for us to fight. Now, Old Olney seems to be in very rough condition. All of the buildings have been destroyed, and perhaps it used to have some importance before the Great War. In real life, Old Olney is based on the real-world city of Olney, Maryland, which is the location of the Olney Federal Support Center, which is an underground continuity of the U.S. government during an emergency. So, some real-life implications. And perhaps the Chinese government targeted this location because of its importance. Also nearby is Vault 92. Now, there's a lot of streets here that the Deathclaws appear kind of just randomly. I couldn't find any sound paths that they took. Sometimes I found them, sometimes I didn't. Just kind of like a maze and luck of the draw. And then in the center of town, we can find a sort of encampment with a lot of mutilated bodies, some ammunition, and a medical kit. Now, this is actually a pretty interesting part of the city, because during the quest Election Day, and if you make it so that President Dave of the Republic of Dave does not get re-elected, he will make his way to Old Olney and declare this the new Republic of Dave, provided he doesn't get killed by some Deathclaws. And over on this wall, we can see some Vault Tech propaganda posters, and of course nearby is Vault 92, so citizens of Olney would have had easy access to a vault. Then on the southeastern part of the map, we can find another Deathclaw that hangs out behind the fire station. Now in front of the fire station, we can find a skeleton, and this skeleton belonged to Carl Wallace, who was a Nuka-Cola truck driver during the Great War. And he was actually used for a promotional Nuka-Cola truck during the release of Fallout 4, that you could actually buy his truck. And we can also find a note next to his body titled the Nuka-Cola Accident Report, which reads, "I was driving on the highway east of Old Olney near the gas station, and suddenly a deer ran out in front of my rig. I swerved to avoid hitting it, but my brakes locked up, and I ended up jackknifing against the guardrail. I was in the process of delivering a very important shipment to the Old Olney grocery, so I have called and requested an immediate pickup in front of Old Olney's firehouse. I will wait there until the tow truck arrives. There's been some breakage, but the special shipment is still intact. I am not injured, but the truck is likely a total loss. This is my first incident of this nature with the company. I hope it will not reflect poorly on my future evaluations. Carl Wallace, Nuka-Cola Corporation Driver 09899, Department SH03. And if we head east of Old Olney, we can find his truck along with a lucrative supply of Nuka-Cola Quantum. But before we can do that, we have some Deathclaws to fight. And this time I was caught off guard as I was just kind of enjoying and exploring around. Thankfully, this Deathclaw just ran off for some reason as I got near the debris. The Deathclaws in Old Olney really do not like it when the player character goes near debris, but then he snuck up on me anyway and scared the shit out of me. But thankfully he couldn't get in through this door, so I was able to zap him a lot using my laser rifle, which I found to be extremely effective against Deathclaws. And using this doorway, I was eventually able to kill the Deathclaw, but he did get some good hits on me, and he almost killed me here. I thought I was actually going to die, but thankfully this entrance here is too low. After that, I went to go check to see if he was the Firehouse Deathclaw, which he wasn't. And I made another very important discovery. So if you've watched previous episodes of the Unexplored Mojave, you know that Deathclaw Jesus is very real and that he is determined to torment me with his magical abilities. And this Deathclaw at the firehouse happened to be the reincarnation. After that terrifying encounter, I decided to finally head east, not west, of Old Olney, but not before showing you this grader. You have to be really careful with this grader as it serves as a trap, and if you fall down there, you're really in a bad position as you have to fight a Deathclaw. Next to City Hall, we can find a dead mercenary who had some ammunition and a stim pack on him, which would be very useful later on. Also, I wanted to point out something I really like about Fallout 3 are the overpasses. In Fallout New Vegas, the overpasses are purely just aesthetic. Even if you use glitches, you cannot actually get on top of them. But in Fallout 3, they are actual things that you can usually climb and get on top of and get some very beautiful shots of the world. So I know Fallout 3 gets a lot of hate sometimes, but just something I wanted to point out that I kind of like about the game, even if it's a really small detail. As we made our way east, we found a gas station with various Talon Company mercs.
If it isn't the little saint from the vault, we've been looking for you. Someone's put quite a price on your head. What? You think you can walk around the wasteland doing the things that you do, and there isn't going to be someone who takes notice? Such a shame. I hear that you could have been something useful. Ah, well, time to die. Ha ha! No, I don't think so.
I thought this was a really cool random encounter. Fallout 3 has a lot of really cool random encounters, and it actually adds a little bit more story to the Talon Company, which I really appreciate. However, one of them, I incapacitated his head, or crippled his head, and he kind of just gave up and let me kill him, so that was nice of him. Then on one of the ash piles, I found a private contract with a bounty that said, kill John H. Otter, which is of course me, and it's just a bounty for your player character if you've chosen the the good karma path in this game. And then here on the mini-map, you can see the actual location of the crashed truck in case you only want to visit this location and not deal with the actual Deathclaws. We can find several Nuka-Cola Quantum in here, which is of course very good for the quest, the Nuka-Cola Challenge. And to be precise, there are 5 bottles of Nuka-Cola Quantum here, along with 26 bottles of just regular Nuka-Cola. So pretty cool, pretty interesting, and a really fascinating location within Fallout 3, albeit it is unmarked. After investigating this truck and getting my Nuka-Cola Quantum, I decided to head back to Old Olney to walk around and explore a bit to see what this town had to offer. Now this seems to be a very downtown area with an apartment building, but there's not much residential area within the city itself. So probably a lot of business and a lot of corporation in the city. And I also was trying to figure out why there are so many death claws here. From what I could figure, or from what I could find on the internet, it appears that there was just a death claw nest very close to the city, and therefore the death claws invaded the city. Now, based on what we read earlier about there being a government facility here in the underground, I might assume that the Chinese dropped an atomic bomb here. It was highly irradiated, and so the death claws made their way here because they like radiation. I tried to make my way into the sewer from here, but I couldn't open the manhole. So I decided to come over here to the trap and try my luck. And what ensued was one of the most terrifying, most difficult 30 minutes of Fallout 3, or any Fallout game for that matter, that I've ever had. Inside this room, there is a Deathclaw just waiting for you, and he beat the shit out of me the first time. It was really going to take some special thinking in order to get past him. The next time around, I tried a line of landmines along with a couple of grenades being lobbed at the Deathclaw. This strategy seemed to work the best because the Deathclaw does not just have a straight path, right? The path will vary depending on various factors. Now, I was terrified that the Deathclaw was just going to come out this door and kill me. Thankfully, that didn't happen. But upon entering, I encountered him immediately, and I was trying to cripple his leg, which I was able to do. However, he cornered me and killed me. But I knew by crippling his leg, I could probably get around him and then finish him off. So as we can see here again, the Deathclaw walked over the mine as I loaded the save again, and I was able to cripple his leg. Then I used a stealth boy in order to sneak around him, and I was able to kill him pretty easily because of how slow he walked. So, kind of had to use some creativity and all of my resources in order to defeat this Deathclaw. However, I was not prepared for what was actually in the sewers. As soon as I opened this door, I found another Deathclaw, and very thankfully, he got caught on the door. And this door was very important to completing the sewers. Inside this room, we can find a locked terminal, which, upon hacking, will grant us a friendly Protectron. However, this Protectron is absolutely useless, and I have no clue why he's even in this part of the game, as one hit from a Deathclaw will render him useless. As I made my way further down the sewer, I found another Deathclaw. I shot at him a bit before I ran away. The Deathclaw got in one strike, which would be important later, and then he murdered my friend with one swipe. Now, again, like I said earlier, this doorway would prove instrumental in completing the old Olney sewers, as Deathclaws cannot get through. Now, as I came down to the bottom part of the sewer and opened up this double door, I found out there was yet another Deathclaw waiting inside. And this Deathclaw would give me the most trouble. And because I just could never outrun him. But as I kept trying, each attempt got a little bit better. After several attempts, I was finally able to kill the Deathclaw. Out of every Deathclaw location I visited, this one gave me the most trouble by far, even more than locations like Deathclaw Promontory and Fallout New Vegas. But inside this room, there wasn't a whole lot. Now, there is a very hard locked door, and you have to have 100 lockpick to open it, and inside we can find a mini-nuke, but I don't have 100 lockpick. Then my worst fears were realized when I turned a corner and found another Deathclaw, who promptly ended my life. Now this time I knew I was going to have to get more creative, as this Deathclaw was simply too far away from the door of safety for me to run away. So what I did was I took my armor off, which increases the player's speed by a little bit. When the Deathclaw got close, I switched my armor on so the hit didn't immediately kill me, and this proved to work pretty well actually, as I was then able to kill the Deathclaw. So again, using all of my resources, using some kind of, Todd Howard game logic along with some creativity, and we were able to kill almost all of the Deathclaws in the sewers. However, at this point I had very low health and I had no stim packs, but I wanted to finish it, and I actually at this point thought all of the Deathclaws were probably dead. However, as we will see here in a little bit, I failed to look at my radar. And as you can see here, as I picked up this scoped Magnum, there was a red dot on my radar. However, I did not see him. So I just kept going along my merry way, thinking the coast was clear, and I entered this room full of dead bodies. And little did I know I would soon join them.
Gotcha, bitch!
So with no health, how was I going to defeat this Deathclaw? Well, it was going to come down to luck. One, I got lucky the Deathclaw didn't hit me there, and then I was just scared to death that this Deathclaw was going to walk into this room and kill me. But, thankfully, that is not what happened. For whatever reason, the Deathclaw got glitched out in his pathing, and he started just running away from me. He was just as terrified of me as I was of him. So thankfully, he just ran away, and I was able to use my 44 scope Magnum, newly acquired, might I add, in order to finish him off. He ran into the back of this cave, and I was able to kill him. And finally, I was able to claim victory over the old Olney sewers. In this room, we can find a dead Brotherhood of Steel with prototype medic power armor, which is really good as it injects you with Med-X and alerts you to danger and just makes funny comments during combat. Then inside this room where the Deathclaw was, we can find Nuka-Cola Quantum, a missile launcher, and a Fat Man. My first Fat Man in the game, and no doubt a very special weapon for me. There's also various safes that we can unlock, but there isn't a whole lot in them besides some caps, pre-war money, and ammunition. Then we use the bed to heal up, and we could go to the back of the cave where that Deathclaw chose to die. Now, the back of this cave is interesting because we can find a skill book, Duck and Cover, along with a dead skeleton that appears to be trying to dig his way out of the sewers with a wooden spoon. Quite a funny scene, and I always love what Bethesda and Obsidian did with these caves and just making funny scenes of people trying to do something in a cave. We can also find a manual for the power armor, and it just explains how the power armor works, and you can now wear the power armor. And I actually really like this power armor because I can find its comments to be quite humorous. After leaving the sewers, I decided to head back to my home in Megaton to get everything organized and to offload some of my loot, and then I would return the next day to continue my mission. Fully healed, well rested, and having more ammunition, I felt very confident returning to Old Olney. This time I found out that there were 2 Deathclaws that were still alive, so I decided to go ahead and kill them. Now, this Deathclaw decided to just kind of give up, and he just decided to run into this wall before he turned away and then jumped over my head. Now, this Deathclaw gave me a little bit of trouble, but I was able to kill him pretty effortlessly, and then using our newly acquired Fat Man, I was able to kill the second Deathclaw. And I have to say, the progression here just felt so good. Going from dealing with Deathclaws with almost nothing to having a Fat Man in order to kill them was very rewarding. It felt like I grew a lot as a player. It felt like I was actually progressing. So some very cool and memorable experiences for me in Fallout 3. And then there's my Fat Man to kill that Deathclaw. Very satisfying. And then as I was making my way to record one last scenic shot, I found one more Deathclaw just running around. And no problem for one mini nuke. So there you have it, Old Olney, a very cool location in Fallout 3, and it's actually a location I didn't remember very well from my first playthrough. Fallout 3 is a game that I played as a child. It was my first ever Fallout game. However, despite that, I don't remember it all so well, and I just fell in love with Fallout New Vegas more than Fallout 3, but I have had a ton of fun replaying Fallout 3, and I really enjoy exploring the world and making these videos. So if you have any recommendations for the next location in the Unexplored Capital Wasteland, please post them in the comments section below. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you guys so much for watching and liking and commenting and subscribing. This channel has grown so much recently, and I feel like I don't say thank you enough. So truly, from the bottom of my heart, thank you everyone who supports and watches this channel. And, as always, until next time. It's time to forget about those American elections, and it's time to elect a true leader, Dave. In a world where chaos and uncertainty rule the waste, one man stands tall, Dave, your fearless leader from the Republic of Dave. Under Dave's leadership, our people thrive, fresh water, strong walls, and a safe place to call home. Dave promises prosperity, security, and freedom. Freedom from raiders, freedom from mutants, and freedom from tyranny. So, this election cycle, vote Dave, the leader we need, the hero we deserve. Let's make the wasteland great again. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be looking at the Republic of Dave. This is a very famous location within Fallout 3, located in the northeast corner of the map. This is recommended to me by Little Dre, so thank you as always for your recommendation. Now, the Republic of Dave is really just a small farmstead in the northeast portion of the map, but Dave claims he is the president and that this is the only constitutional republic within the wasteland. Obviously, he has never heard of the new California Republic. Now, the Republic of Dave consists of many government departments, such as the Army of Dave, which consists only of Dave and his second-in-command, Bob, the Immigration Bureau, the Tourism Office, the Bureau of Dave-like Activities, and a Department of Education. The Republic of Dave is only one of 3 places in the Capital Wasteland that has an active school, the other 2 locations being Vault 101 and Little Lamplight. So let's check out the Republic of Dave. As I mentioned earlier, the Republic of Dave is in the far northeast corner of the Capital Wasteland, just to the east of Old Olney. Now, as you approach the Republic of Dave, you will be greeted by Flower, who is one of Dave's daughters.
The Republic of Dave. This is the Republic of Dave. Duh. It's named for President Daddy. But you have to talk to him if you want to stay here. He's the president of the Republic of Dave. Duh. You can ask over at the Museum of Dave if you don't believe me. But you can't just wander around here. You need to go get permission from President Daddy first. Okay, I'll take you, but President Daddy doesn't always like new people. Okay, come with me.
So after being nice to the little girl, you can follow her and she'll take you to President Dave, and then you have to convince him that you are somebody worthy enough to be in his republic. And then once inside the capital, we can see a lot of Dave's children. Also, Dave has 2 wives. Now, I noticed one of the children sit on the ground and pull out a Nuka-Cola and start drinking it. I've never seen that animation before, so I just thought it was really cool and really interesting. And then in this room, we can find Dave's office.
President Daddy, there's a wastelander who wishes to see you, sir.
We have someone new in my republic. I am Dave, President of the Republic of Dave. You will address me as Mr. President, or I will have you executed. Now, are you applying for citizenship, asylum, or just vacationing in the Republic of Dave? You are? Excellent. It's good to see that the Wasteland has finally recognized the sovereign Republic of Dave. If the people of the Wasteland are generous and respectful, I might deign to annex them. There's an election for the next president. Don't look so surprised. Can't you see this is a republic? Ah, a seeker of knowledge, then? Well, trust me, an election is what separates a president like myself from a monarch like my father. My father inherited his political power from birth and renamed this great nation the Kingdom of Tom. Although I also inherited my political power from my father when I took over, I formed a republic so the people may elect their leader.
So very quickly, we begin to realize that the Republic of Dave is just as much a republic as the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Obviously, this is a dictatorship with Dave at the center. Now, it's really just Dave's family that lives here, and we find out that they are having an election for the next president of the Republic of Dave. Now, currently, Dave is the only person running for president, but we can convince two people to run against him. Those two people being Bob, his younger brother, and Rosie, his first wife. And this begins the unmarked quest, Election Day. So in the quest Election Day, we have to convince everyone within the Republic of Dave that can vote to vote. So the first person that I found was Shauna, who is Dave's first daughter and also the person who runs the Museum of Dave and is also the teacher at the school of Dave. Now, convincing Shauna is pretty easy. However, she cannot be convinced to vote against her father. She truly believes her father is the greatest man to ever live. Now, the next person I found was Bob, who has quite the temperament, but Bob can actually be convinced to run against Dave. And as I mentioned earlier, Bob is Dave's brother, so we can convince him to run against Dave like so.
Dave. Man, I'd love to be the president. Everybody would have to listen to me, or I could just exile them to the wasteland. And the first thing I'd do is make myself the permanent leader so they couldn't vote me out in some other election. But there's no need for me to run. One year, Dave is just going to make me the leader, just like my grandpa Tom did for him. I'm tired of it. I'm old enough to take Dave's place. I'll win that election and show everybody.
So even if you fail the speech check, Bob can still be convinced to go vote for himself. So after that exchange, I told Bob to go vote, and he went to go vote for himself. Now we can also find Bob practicing his marksmanship at the shooting range, which I thought was a cool little tidbit since he is part of the army of Dave. Now, before continuing the quest, I just wanted to quickly show the men's barracks. Now, there's nothing much in here besides 2 beds, one for Bob and one for Dave, along with Dave's sons. And then also we have the women's barracks, obviously. Dave has 2 wives and several daughters. But nothing really much inside either of these. The next person I found was Rosie, who is Dave's first wife. Now, she really does not like Dave's second wife, but has accepted the fact that he needs 2 wives so he can repopulate the wasteland. But after some discussion, we can convince Rosie to run for president herself, like so.
Believe it or not, I used to lead a group bigger than this one on an old caravan route. I did it for years, and we did pretty well for ourselves. But what am I talking about? You're right. Dave's just been pushing me around. It's time for a change.
So after that, we can tell Rosie to go vote, and then she will go vote for herself to be president. And then the last person we need to convince is Jessica. Jessica is Dave's second wife, and she really loves Dave, but she really hates Rosie. So she cannot be convinced to vote for anyone else besides Dave. Now, before finishing the quest, Election Day, I wanted to show off the Museum of Dave, ran by Dave's daughter, Shauna. Now, the museum acts both as a school and as a museum. And earlier I said it acts as a school and it's only one of 3 in the Capital Wasteland. However, its status as a school is questionable. They teach things such as Dave never cried when he was a baby and that his poop does not smell. Very interesting claims to make, but, you know, it's a republic. So Shauna can give us a tour of the museum, and also we can find the bobblehead Perception inside, so make sure to grab that.
So, I'll just get started on the tour of the museum then. To my far right is the baby carriage that our great leader slept in as a newborn baby. Unlike most babies, he never cried, and his poop didn't stink. Dave had 8 siblings and made his own baseball team. The team was so good, in fact, the Wasteland team was so scared, it never showed up to compete. The briefcase is the very one Dave took with him when he became fed up with the poor ways that his father ran the nation. Dave brought back many items from the Wasteland. It was artifacts like these that amassed the Republic's great wealth. Dave collects many war collectibles, including holotapes and war weaponry. This globe represents the whole planet that Dave traversed. Don't let its size fool you. The world is at least 50 times bigger than this. I don't know who put that tire there. These weapons were used against the USA before the bombs fell. Dave probably acquired these when he walked to China. Dave is a world-renowned marksman, known for shooting an apple out of the hand of a raider from across the Potomac. Mounted to my left is the very head of the slain Deathclaw that Dave encountered during his quest through the wastes. I know what you're thinking, and no, that's not a Brahmin skull. Brahmin have 2 heads, so there'd have to be 2 skulls for it to be Brahmin. Please, no touching. And that's the tour. I hope you enjoyed it.
I think her pathing got a little screwed up during the tour, but either way, we can clearly see that it is not the skull of a Deathclaw, so Dave is just a big fat liar. Also, Shauna can act as a merchant and you can sell her various goods. However, she doesn't have anything to offer you. Now, before completing the quest Election Day, I wanted to make sure I stole Dave's key to make sure I could access his safe, which has some good loot inside of it. So as you can see here, I pickpocket the key off of him, and then I can access his safe. Now, I found out afterwards that if you elect Rosie, she will actually just give you the combination to the safe as a kind of reward. Now, if you choose to elect Bob or Rosie, Dave will pretty much exile himself and accept the loss, which is pretty wild. Now, in the safe are some bottle caps and the unique hunting rifle, Old Painless, and a Nuka-Cola Quantum. Now, in order to alter the results of the election, you have to open the ballot box before Dave does, and then you can take out the votes and leave in the votes for whoever you want to win. For me, I chose Rosie, since she seemed to be the most qualified, and then Dave has a bit of a tantrum and freaks out.
After counting the votes, the president is... Rosie? Rosie can't be president. No. This is unfair. This can't be. Fine, I'm leaving. See how you people do without me. Enjoy your new president. I guess you're wondering where I'm going. I'm off to annex old Olney and forge the new Republic of Dave. Don't try to stop me.
So after that, Dave will simply accept his loss in the election, even though it really makes no sense that he lost the election, and he will make his way to Old Olney to establish the new Republic of Dave. Of course, Old Olney is home to many Deathclaws, and he might not survive the journey. However, I cleared out the area first, that way Dave could make it, and I could talk to him once again. If we travel to Old Olney, we can find Dave just lounging around in the middle of the city.
Hey, this is the new Republic of Dave. Go away. By the order of the New Republic of Dave, I order you to go away. This is your last warning. I warn you. Hey! Where?
So obviously it seems like Dave has grown distrustful of the player character after the events that transpired in his Republic. If we head back to the Republic of Dave, now the democracy of Rosie, she will have some interesting dialogue.
Well now, who could have ever thought? Me, president! Huh, things are really going to be different around here. Listen, I can't thank you enough. You convinced me that I could do this, and you were right. I want you to have something. Dave kept some big weapon or something locked up in the safe in his office. The code is 1138. It's yours if you want it. We don't need it anymore.
And with that, you complete the quest Election Day. Now, I actually reloaded the save to see if you could take the contents of the safe without losing karma. However, it's still considered stealing for whatever reason, and you will still lose karma for taking the contents. And then Jessica will also make a comment that she is not happy with the results of the election. But besides that, the normal dialogue about Dave still remains. People will say, like, "You're safe as long as Dave says so." So the dialogue within the game does not really change, which is unfortunate. So some quick interesting facts about the Republic of Dave. First, within the museum, there is a hot plate which is oversized and is a unique item within the game. Also, the Republic of Dave is the northeasternmost part of the map, and 3Dog will say that he can be heard from the Republic of Dave after the Lone Wanderer fixes the Galaxy News Radio dish. And despite what you might be thinking, the Republic of Dave was not inspired by any kind of real-life events, simply the developers thought it would be a funny idea. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any recommendations for the next video, please post them in the comment section below. And as always, until next time. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. The Army of Otters here, and today we're going to be exploring MDPL 16 Power Station. This is a location close to the Republic of Dave. Now there's a chance for a random encounter here, and the random encounter I got was a giant scorpion fighting some soldier ants. And this scorpion is friendly for whatever reason. So just kind of a cool encounter or Easter egg, whatever you want to make of it. So let's dive into the power station. And here we can see the location on the Pip-Boy. As I said, it's just south of the Republic of Dave in the northeastern corner of the map. And as you approach, there's obviously, like I said, a chance for some kind of random encounter. Here we got the friendly giant rad scorpion. So pretty cool. But when you approach him, he gets a little bit angry at you, and then I decided to kill him. However, I was a bit sad because he didn't give me any XP. So, it's a little sad. And then I got attacked by a Robo-Brain, and there are a lot of Protectrons and Robo-Brains near this location. So if you need them for whatever reason, or to be wary of them, either way, they are out here. Now, inside the power station, there's a Nuka-Cola Quantum, a bottle cap mine, and there's also a first aid kit, or first aid box, sorry, with Radaway and a stim pack. And then we have an average locked safe that can be accessed via lockpick or via terminal. Now inside there is some decent loot, mainly chems and a laser pistol. Now at the actual power station, or where it goes or connects to the power lines, there is nothing. So very barren in there. Now obviously Fallout 3 is riddled with these kinds of locations, however they seem to always offer some decent loot. Like here we got some Nuka-Cola Quantum and a lot of chems. So I do appreciate that every location has something to offer. Alright guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any recommendations for the next location, please post them in the comment section below. And as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be checking out Chaste Acres Dairy Farm. This is a somewhat large farm in the northeast corner of the map, kind of just south of Dave's Republic and near the power station that we checked out in the previous episode. So I want to point out the sunset here is very beautiful, and I think you could easily mistake this view for Fallout New Vegas. Just kind of has that western feel. Obviously it's a farmstead. So I just thought it was really beautiful and wanted to showcase this view. Now, this farmstead features a lot of raiders, and there's also some Brahmin in it. However, in my encounter, the Brahmin got killed or they ran away, so there were no Brahmin. But that is possible to find some Brahmin here, so possibly there's still some milk production still going on here, albeit by raiders. And as you can see here, here's the location of Chaste Acres Dairy Farm in the northeast corner of the map. Now, there are quite a few raiders here. However, sometimes these raiders will get into a fight with scorpions or protectrons or even deathclaws. And during that encounter, because of the direction those enemies come from, it can set off a chain reaction like so. Now, this is really good for the player character, of course, as it will probably take out some of the raiders, as it did for me, and it'll also probably kill whatever the raiders are fighting, which for me was a Protectron. After this, I only had a couple of raiders left, so it was just a matter of taking them out. Using my new hunting rifle, I was able to kill them pretty easily. However, one of the raiders actually took quite a bit of shots, this one here, but eventually we were able to get rid of him. And there is some minor loot here, and on the raiders, obviously, they drop ammunition and stuff, which for me was pretty good because I'm pretty low on supplies currently on this playthrough. Now, there's also a raider at the top of this grain or wheat silo, so you definitely want to take him out as he has some kind of rifle and he can deal a lot of damage. But using my scoped 44, I was able to kill him without taking too many hits, but he did get a couple of good hits on me. Now, in the main room of the barn, we can find a mutilated body. There's also a lawnmower in the corner. At the top is another mutilated body, and another mutilated body, and then we also have a copy of Grognak the Barbarian, so some pretty good loot. Then over here, we can see the remains of that major explosion from earlier in the video. Obviously, a lot of destruction and death took place here, but there's nothing really over here as far as loot, and in the destroyed house, there is nothing. Now, within the silo, we can actually find some somewhat decent loot. There is a copy of Pugilism Illustrated, and that's about it. But also, you can climb to the top of this silo, but I couldn't see the ladder because it was dark. But you can go loot that raider at the top. And then over here, we just have another mutilated body dangling from a windmill. Then on the other side of this hill to the southwest, we can actually find another outhouse. However, for whatever reason, these outhouses are irradiated and they're in pools of radioactive water. Also, there is a Yaoguai over here, so be very careful when you come here because there can be very dangerous enemies, of course. But it was pretty easy to kill because I just used this rock as a defense, and he didn't even manage to get a hit on me, thankfully, because I don't have much health. Now, sometimes the raiders will actually fight that Yaoguai. Over here in this bathtub, we can find a Nuka-Cola Quantum along with some locked ammunition boxes. Now, this outhouse is somewhat interesting. I've never seen anything like it in Fallout. It's constructed or protected by cars. I have no clue how they got these cars put together like that, but it kind of reminded me of a car Stonehenge. And I don't know why it's radioactive, and there's also a dead body in one of the pools of water. Nearby, there is a very tall mountain or hill, more or less, and you can get some very beautiful views of the surrounding area. However, there is nothing up there of note. Overall, I thought this location was pretty cool. Also, we can see that perhaps Brahmin milk is somewhat valuable in the nuclear apocalypse. Now, I did want to also mention in Fallout 76, you can actually milk Brahmin, and drinking their milk restores a small amount of health and reduces radiation. I thought this was very interesting. I would just imagine that Brahmin milk would increase radiation, but hey, what do I know? Alright guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. If you have any recommendations for the next location, please drop them in the comment section below. And as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be looking at Grisly Diner. This is a really cool location that has a scripted event upon entering the actual diner. Now this is a location I had very little memory of, and the only reason I had any memory of it was because we can find the Keller family transcript number 3 behind the diner. So we'll take a look at that along with some of the other loot in the area. And then here on the minimap we can see the location of Grisly Diner just southwest of the Republic of Dave and southwest of Relay Tower KX B811. Now, as you approach this location, there will be no enemies, there will be really nothing here. But you'll notice that there are some traps leading up to the diner. We got some frag mines here. And upon entering the diner, you're going to be ambushed by a band of raiders. And also, as you approach, you're going to notice a lot of mutilated bodies, bones, and other guts inside of the diner. And mutilated bodies. Fallout 3 really loves its mutilated bodies. Don't know why the raiders in Washington, D.C. are so gruesome. But like I said, upon entering the diner, you're going to be attacked by a band of raiders. For me, it consisted of 3 raiders, one of which was equipped with a missile launcher. However, because it was close quarters combat, she could not use the missile launcher, as you will see here. When I first approached this diner, I didn't know the ambush was going to happen, so I was really satisfied when it did happen. Now, a big difference between Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, I think, is how much stuff there is. Fallout 3 does have more locations, and for the most part, I do think there is more going on at some of these locations than in Fallout New Vegas. Like here, it appeared to be an abandoned diner, but I got ambushed by raiders. There we can see the Kelly family transcript number 3 on the back of the diner on top of that desk. And we can also find some ammunition crates and weapons. Then behind the diner, there is some pretty good loot. So first there is a medical kit, and for whatever reason, this medical kit or first aid box is unusually big, probably just part of the aesthetic of the diner. Then we can also find a copy of a Tales of a Junktown Jerky Vendor on the shelves behind the diner, so a pretty good find. Then outside on the bed, there were some Kims, Stimpack, and Psycho, and I could rest up. On the billboard behind the diner, we can see the Enclave have painted over the old pre-war advertisement. Then just up the road to the north, we can find a destroyed bus with a copy of the U.S. Army 30 handy flamethrower recipes. A very good find. And then walking past the diner was a scavenger who had things to sell. This diner is located on the road for many scavengers, so it's a good place to find some traders if you want to get some loot. However, to be perfectly honest, they don't have too much merchandise worthwhile on them. Also, for a fun fact, Grisly Diner will actually appear in the ending slides of Fallout 3 once you've beaten the game, so pretty cool. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. If you have any recommendations for the next location, please post them in the comments section below. And, as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be looking at the Temple of the Union, which is a location in the northeast Capital Wasteland. Now this is a location that many players will probably visit because of the quest, Head of State. Now, the Temple of the Union might sound religious or something, but it is not. The Union is a reference to the United States government during the U.S. Civil War. The United States was called the Union. So the Temple of the Union is referencing the U.S. government during the Civil War, and also we can find the head of Abraham Lincoln inside. And basically this facility is now used as a safe haven for escaped slaves in the Capital Wasteland. So let's jump into the Temple of the Union. As I mentioned before, it's located in the northeast part of the map, kind of near Grisly Diner and north of Canterbury Commons. Now there's also a highway near the temple, which we will go into later in the video. Now if you approach the temple for the first time, you'll have to convince them that you're on their side. Here we can see Cameron, and basically she will threaten you to not make any wrong moves, and that she will be watching you, but that she has to let you in because it was Hannibal Hamlin's orders to let people inside, especially if they are escaped slaves. So she will come down and let you in. Now, I was just kind of like listening to her dialogue, and she will unlock the gate, and then she will close it again, and I was like, oh no, can I get back inside? But yes, you can. Simply just walk up to the gate, and she will open it for you again, like so. So, pretty easy if in case you mess up like I do. Then on the second floor, we can find the inhabitants of the Temple of the Union. The dog is called Fourscore, which is a reference to Abraham Lincoln's Fourscore speech at Gettysburg. Then we can find Hannibal Hamlin, who is the leader of this operation, and he can tell us a bit about the Temple of the Union.
That's Abraham Lincoln, the great emancipator. We don't know how it came to be here, but it's fitting, don't you think? For 23 years I was a slave, ever since I was 14. 6 years ago I managed to escape from my master. He's been hunting me ever since. When I found the head of Lincoln here, I knew it was a sign for me to help other slaves to escape. I founded the Temple of the Union as a safe haven for runaway slaves everywhere. We are trying to make a safe haven for all runaway slaves. We give food and supplies to any that find us and help them on their way.
So as we can see, the goal of the Temple of the Union is to help runaway slaves. Slavery is a big issue within the Capital Wasteland. However, it's more of a privatized business, whereas in Fallout New Vegas, it's a government, the Legion, Caesar's Legion, which employs slavery. But around the Temple of the Union, there really isn't a whole lot for us to loot. Of course, there's the head of Abraham Lincoln, but we cannot take that. And inside of the bedrooms and stuff, it's all private, right? It's all owned by the people here. Now, how the head of Abraham Lincoln ended up in this building is unknown. And also in Fallout New Vegas, in Brockflower Cave, we can also find the head of Abraham Lincoln. So perhaps they were just distributed, or perhaps this really is the head off the Lincoln Memorial. Then on the first floor, we can find some offices, signaling that this was probably a pre-war office building. And then we can find a bed, which the player can sleep on, and then a Brahmin in the corner, and also we can find an anvil. Then on the second floor, there's a little kitchen area and a jukebox. So a somewhat stable living area for the people. However, the roof was destroyed, meaning there's not much protection from the elements. So several of the inhabitants of the Temple of the Union are actually named after real-life members of Abraham Lincoln's cabinet. For example, Hannibal Hamlin, the leader of the Temple of the Union, was vice president during Lincoln's first term in office. Caleb Smith was the Secretary of the Interior, William Bill Seward was the Secretary of State, and Simon Cameron was the Secretary of War, and as I mentioned, the dog Fourscore is named after Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. However, the other woman, Alejandra Torres, I don't know anything about her. I tried researching it, but it appears she's just a randomly named NPC with no connection to slavery or abolition. So it would seem that these escaped slaves have gotten rid of their old identities in order to create new identities in the path to try and help and free slaves. And then there's a variety of random encounters that can happen inside of the Temple of the Union or in the surrounding area. So here you can see I got attacked by the Talon Company, and a fight broke out between me, them, and then the Temple of the Union also came to my aid and helped me kill them. Now, once you completed the quest, Head of State, the Temple of the Union will move to the Lincoln Memorial, and then you can have a Type A random encounter on the second floor of the Temple of the Union. And then over here on the old highway, there can be a random encounter with the Enclave, where a few Enclave soldiers will be dropped off. And if you've already completed the quest Head of State, the little encampment to my left, the little fort, will be occupied by raiders. But as long as there are people inside the Temple of the Union, the raiders will not spawn. But basically, the raiders and the Enclave soldiers can end up fighting each other. And once the raiders do spawn at this little fort, you can actually find some pretty good loot among them, including Tales of a Junktown Jerky vendor and a copy of Grognak the Barbarian. But as long as there's people inside the Temple of the Union, these items will not spawn. And besides the loot, you can also get some very good views from up here. So there you have it, the Temple of the Union, a very cool place within the Capital Wasteland, and we also have some very cool references to history, especially the American Civil War, and as somebody who loves American history, I think it's really cool. Alright everyone, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. If you have any recommendations for the next video, please post them in the comment section below, and as always, until next time. Hello everybody, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be checking out Relay Tower KX-B811. This relay tower is located in the far northeastern part of the map, and it's very remote, and it might seem like there is really nothing here, but there's actually a pretty cool story and some environmental storytelling associated with this location, so let's check it out. So here on the Pip-Boy, you can see the location of the relay tower in the northeast, just south of the Republic of Dave. Now when I approached it, I got a random encounter here with a scavenger and his pet Yaoguai. This is a friendly Yaoguai, which is pretty cool, so you can examine the animal up close. And the scavenger can have some trading, but he didn't really have anything on him. Now when I found these two, they were fighting a Protectron, and upon killing the Protectron, they warned me to stay away from it, otherwise they might attack me, but I was still able to loot the Protectron without any consequences, so just empty threats, even though they honestly could have probably have killed me. But yeah, anyways, inside the actual relay tower, there is a power switch, and you're going to want to turn on this power switch. And you can actually turn on the power switch through the gate, you don't need to pick the lock, but I went ahead and picked the lock anyway. And then we can get a radio station which has the following message.
Family and I have taken refuge in a drainage chamber not too far from a radio relay tower outside of DC. My boy is very sick, needs medical assistance. Please help if you can. We are listening for your response. 3950 kilohertz. If anyone can hear this, this is Bob Anderstein.
So from this message, we learn that Bob Anderstein, along with his family, are located somewhere nearby and that they're in need of assistance. If we head to the southeast along the main road, we can find a flea. That's what this small one-passenger vehicle is called. And after finding the flea, there is a little ditch. And at the bottom of this ditch, we can find the entrance to a sewer, or more of like a drainage chamber. But it doesn't really matter, but once we go inside of the drainage chamber, we can find two rooms at the bottom. On the right, we can find a room where there's like a cot, and we can see two people who are dead. Now we can assume this is Bob Anderstein and his wife, and there's also some children's toys and a lunchbox on the ground, and we can get some decent loot. Here we can see 3 stim packs. Now, there's no indication about their son, however, so perhaps he escaped, or perhaps he died and his body is just gone. Who knows? But there's no evidence as to what happened in here. Perhaps they just died of radiation poisoning. Now, we can assume that they were alive during the pre-war era, and that message has been playing for about 200 years. In the next room, we can find a DC Journal of Internal Medicine, along with the radio that was being used to broadcast that message, and a pre-war book. So some pretty decent loot down here. Now, this isn't the end of the story, though. If we go further to the southeast, we can find a hilltop farm, and it's obviously in poor shape. Perhaps this is where the Anderstein family lived before the bombs fell, but there's no true indication of that. There is a water tower on top of the hill, and you can drink from it. However, you'll get a lot of radiation poisoning if you do so. Now, at the actual farm, I found a wastelander just roaming around. I actually found out this is a random encounter. At first, I thought maybe he was living here, but as I went to go investigate the house, also there's a swing set, but as I went to go investigate the house and this toilet over here, he started getting shot at. Inside the outhouse, we can find a copy of Guns and Bullets, along with an ashtray, so clearly someone was using this and they were just smoking. And behind them are some actually pretty incredible views of Washington, D.C. Then as I entered the house, I started hearing gunshots, and I went back, and there were 3 hunters trying to kill that Wastelander. I don't really know why they were trying to kill him. Perhaps he was an escaped slave. Perhaps they were just hunting him for game or sports. Who knows? But the hunters were not initially hostile to me, but I decided to intervene on behalf of the Wastelander, and it actually granted me positive karma. But when I talked to the Wastelander again, he was still very rude to me, so I decided to kill him. Very rude guy. Anyways, after that I decided to go back into the house, and inside we can actually find a terminal, and this terminal has some pretty interesting things about it, about a group of survivals in the days following the Great War. So I'll go through these journal entries, but if you're not interested, please skip this chapter. So the first journal entry is from Edgar, and it reads, "I finally got everyone to agree to let me set up generators for power. I can understand their nerves, considering what technology did to us all, but not making use of every resource is wasteful, and a sure path to hell in this situation. Coming out into the light has done wonders for everyone, but we can all get a little stir-crazy, even out here. I'm setting this thing up for everyone to use." So we can see that this group of survivors was hiding out underground somewhere, and upon coming back out of the ground, they were hesitant to use technology again because of the devastation which technology had brought in the past. The next entry is from Rochelle, and it reads, "We set up an irrigation system. Thank God for Miles' experience on the farm. I never would have thought of this on my own, but what a great idea. I really thought this ground was useless. But the stuff he had us plant in the dirt we dug up is actually sprouting, and the little rivers keep it all nice and wet." And the next entry is from Tyrone, which reads, "My turn to be boss this month. Seems stupid to me. I don't want to be in charge. I'm just going to do whatever Jim tells me to." So obviously whoever Tyrone was, not a big fan of leading. The next entry from Doc J reads, "I want to remind everyone to come by my tent every day for your radiation screening. Even if you don't think you've been exposed to radiation, the test takes only minutes. Take my word for it, you'd much rather be inconvenienced in the morning than come down with a case of radiation sickness. I'm more than happy to give a detailed account of that scenario to the next person who misses an appointment." And the next entry from Tyler reads, "My name is Ty, and I'm a big dumbhead. Don't know what spawned this typing, but very interesting." And then Tyler wrote, "Hey Rochelle, remind me what a big stupid head I am the next time you need me to repair you and use distillers, okay? What gives, Edgar? You can't put a password on this thing?" Sorry, that one kind of made me lose it, but quite funny. Obviously, Tyler is not very happy. And then the next entry from Jim reads, "Been a good few months for us since the coming out. Going by the dosimeter test, we're taking some exposure to radiation, but as long as Doc Johannesson keeps folks on their meds, we don't seem to be having trouble with rad sickness. Irrigation and fertilization has been good, and though we lost the goats and chickens, the cows have done good. Those hardy beasts don't seem to mind this new world. Miles and Jackie are devoting some time to husbandry to keep the cows breeding and available." So obviously when this was written, it was before the rise of Brahmin. And the next entry from Edgar reads, "I'm trying to fabricate a windmill for us. If anybody spots any long flat sheets of metal, you let me know. I have most of the other parts I need, but haven't found good metal for the blades yet. Perhaps this is the windmill that now stands at this farmstead." And then the final entry from Jim reads, "Nobody outconcerned themselves too much with Miguel's scouting report. While he did spot some folk out past the valley, they rode by and weren't like to have noticed him or us. Let's all just keep to the homestead for a few days and avoid using open fires for a few days, just to be safe." And this is where the entries end. So perhaps they were killed by another group, or perhaps they just stopped writing. Hard to say, but a very interesting tale about a survival group in the early days of the post-apocalypse. Now, if we continue down to the southeast, we can kind of find a small pond, and on the other side of this pond is a container, and inside of this container we can find a skill magazine, specifically Dean's Electronics. So a pretty good snag and very easy to access. And then just on the other side of the farmstead down below on the western side, we can find a lot of Brahmin and probably the husbandry area that was mentioned on the terminal. Obviously now it is now radiated, probably from rain or something, from nuclear irradiated water, and now Brahmin roam the area and not cows. Perhaps these Brahmin are descendants of the cows that once inhabited this area. And there we have it. What might appear to be a remote and small and inconspicuous relay tower turned out to be a very cool area with a lot of storytelling going on here. We can learn about Bob Anderstein and his family, along with a group of survivors in the post-apocalypse, in the early days of the post-apocalypse. So some really cool things going on here, and you can get some very gorgeous views of Washington, D.C. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you have any recommendations for the next video, please post them in the comments section below. And, as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be checking out the MDPL 13 Power Station. Now this is a large landmark within the Capital Wasteland. If you've been watching this series, in about half of the videos so far, this landmark is visible in many of my scenic shots, all the way back during my Greener Pastures disposal site video. So I'll be honest with you, the reason I held off on visiting this location was I thought it was going to be really awesome and really epic because you can see it from so far away, and it turned out to just be kind of mediocre. There's some decent loot here, including a special weapon called Fisto, but besides that, not a whole lot. So let's check out MDPL 13 Power Station. And here on the Pip-Boy, you can see the location just north of the Minefield and southwest of Greener Pastures disposal site. Pretty prominent landmark within the Capital Wasteland. Now, before going into the main power station, we find this small substation, and inside there's actually some pretty decent loot on the workbench. We can find a bottle cap mine, a Nuka-Cola Quantum, and the schematics for a railway rifle. So some pretty decent loot, and then there's also a hard lock safe in here that you can use lockpick or science to open. I elected to use my science skill in order to unlock it. And inside of the safe, which is located on the other side of this desk, I was a little bit confused for a second, but it's on the other side of the desk. We can find some ammunition, bottle caps, and a stealth boy, so pretty good. Making our way over to the main power station, which is the obviously most prominent part of this location, we will find two double doors that lead us inside. Now, upon entering, you're going to find a terminal, and you're going to hear a lot of ghouls screaming as you've pissed them off. Now, you can hack this terminal, which controls the turrets, in order to aid in your fight against the ghouls. However, I found this turret to be actually pretty worthless, and it did more harm than good for me. So maybe it's not worth turning it on. So after activating the turret, I opened up the door and I started taking out the ghouls with my laser pistol, which proved to be pretty effective. A lot of the ghouls got stuck on this beam and between the railing of the staircase, which made my life pretty easy actually. However, the pathing got glitched and a lot of the ghouls ran upstairs and they wouldn't attack me because they were just so afraid of me. So I made my way up the staircase in order to kill the ghouls. There is one glowing one, but he was pretty easy to kill because he got stuck and then he ran away from me. After killing the ghouls, I made my way to the second floor, and up here is where we can find Fisto. You're going to want to go into this office room on the left. Be careful though, because there is a turret above the room, so you're going to want to destroy that. And then inside this little office room, we're going to find some radiation. I don't know how these radioactive barrels got in here, but you're going to hack this terminal in order to open up the safe, or you can lockpick the safe, and you get some caps and chems, and then Fisto's right next to the computer, which is a unique melee weapon. And besides that, there really isn't a whole lot up on this floor. There are two, control panels, I suppose, but we can't really do anything with them. Obviously, this power station has probably been out of service for quite some time. Then on the first floor, there is a tool cabinet that was empty, along with a water fountain that employees probably would have used quite a long time ago. Then we can find this personal footlocker with a very easy lock, and opening it, we can find some bottle caps and a stealth boy, so pretty good. Now, when I exited the power plant, I got attacked by the Talon company, and they actually killed me the first time. I don't know why they dealt so much damage, So the second time I decided to use a mini nuke on them, which did the trick, got both of them very easily. So this is an important PSA from the Army of Otters to always be on the lookout for troublemakers. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this episode of the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you have any recommendations for the next location, please drop them in the comment section below. And as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be checking out Minefield, which I feel like is a pretty famous location in Fallout 3, but maybe not for everyone. This is a location I actually have pretty good memory of from my time when I played Fallout as a kid, mainly because of Arkansas, who is kind of the crazed sniper that oversees this entire neighborhood. And he will shoot you on sight if he spots you. So approaching from the north and then killing out Arkansas from an even higher point is probably the easiest way to deal with it. Now, as I mentioned, this is called Minefield, and as the name would imply, there are a lot of mines within this city, so you must be careful wherever you step. In total, there are 67 frag mines in this location, so you definitely want to be careful as you approach. So let's dive into the Minefield. And as you can see here on the map, Minefield is located kind of in the middle of the map, north of Bethesda Ruins and east of the German Police HQ, south of the MDPL 13 power station. Now, as you approach from the north, you're going to find a water tower with a random encounter. I encountered a Deathclaw that had extremely low health. I don't know why he had low health. He just did. But there's really nothing at this water tower besides it would probably have provided this town with its water during the pre-war era. Then on top of the building over here we can see Arkansas, and a well-placed 44 bullet ended his life. Now, rather unfortunately, Arkansas cannot be reasoned with, so killing him is the best option. That way you don't have to worry about being sniped or killed by him. There is a scripted event where if you approach on the road, he'll shoot a car, exploding the car. Obviously that could kill you, so killing him is your best bet at survival. Then I made my way down the cliff, which was actually pretty easy. And then there was a mine conveniently placed at the bottom of the cliff. So perhaps Arkansas had been worried about someone scaling down the cliff, such as myself. I then made my way over to the building which Arkansas occupied in order to loot Arkansas because he has an important key along with a sniper rifle on his body. On the second floor of the building we can find a bed, which probably is where Arkansas slept, along with some minor loot. Arkansas then was up here, and we can take his key and sniper rifle, and then there's also some ammunition crates up here which provided some decent ammunition, especially for the sniper rifle. So nothing to complain about, pretty good loot. So real quick, I wanted to talk about Minefield and its history. So before becoming Minefield, this was known as Ridgefield, which was a small community in the post-war era. Obviously, the inhabitants were survivors or wastelanders, but sometime prior to the events of Fallout 3, Paradise Falls discovered the community and raided it and took several captives, forcing them into slavery. A small boy was the sole survivor, and that small boy was named Arkansas. So of course, young Arkansas wanted vengeance, and he would get it. He began to spread a rumor that Ridgefield had a new group of inhabitants, and then he booby-trapped the town using mines and took up a sniper post, and eventually the rumor spread to Paradise Falls, where they again launched a raid on the town, only this time Arkansas was prepared. He opened fire on the slavers with many dying to bullets, many dying to frag explosions, and then any other survivors ran off, and from then on, Paradise Falls enslavers avoided Ridgefield. And as Arkansas has grown older, he is still a very good shot, however he will attack the player, even if the player has good karma or is a good person. And of course, the slavers at Paradise Falls still remember him, and he actually can be enslaved by the player during the quest, Strictly Business. So within Minefield, there are 4 explorable houses, and we can assume that these houses used to belong to the previous inhabitants. The first house we will explore is Zane House. Now, these houses have some pretty good loot, however, the doors will range from very easy to a hard lock. However, if you take the key from Arkansas, you can go inside any house without any trouble. In this first house, we can find somebody who may have killed themselves a long time ago. And then in the cabinet, there was a combat shotgun, and behind this cabinet is a locked safe, an easy lock safe, and inside is some ammunition, bottle caps, pre-war money, and sometimes if you're lucky, there will be a stealth boy. Then there's also darts riddled across these houses, along with first aid boxes, so a good place to stock up on some aid or some ammunition. In the upstairs, we have a very creepy scene with what appears to be a dead teenager, along with a copy of Pugilism Illustrated. So that's pretty good. And then also I wanted to point out in the hallway we have these plates. And I noticed this a lot in Fallout, where you have a plate, and while it's the same item, it appears bigger than other items of the same category or name. And then the next house we will check out is Benson House. There's a mine right in front of the door. There's nothing really in this mailbox besides a hockey mask. Inside, we can find a pretty disturbing scene upstairs. Also wanted to point out all of these houses have pre-war books. Now upstairs, we can find a dead raider and a dead wastelander. So perhaps there was some kind of confrontation between these two people. Now, you'll notice some dead raiders around Minefield. They were killed, assumingly, by Arkansas. So, some interesting shenanigans going on here. Then in the master bedroom, we can find a copy of the DC Journal of Medicine, and then also another pre-war book, and behind this dresser, a safe. And as previously mentioned, these safes will contain a random assortment of caps, ammunition, weapons, and hopefully a stealth boy. And then the next house we will look at is Gibson House. And inside Gibson House, we can actually find something pretty interesting. So obviously there's the dead raider, along with a handprint on the front door. Now within the office, we can find a copy of Tumblers Today. Then in the living room is what I wanted to talk about. We can find a very hard-locked model home. And inside is only junk food, buff-out, and pre-war money. It's not very valuable. However, it can also be unlocked with Gibson's key, which can be found on Gibson's corpse within the Capitol Post Building in downtown Washington, D.C. And within the Capitol Post Building, we can find the decapitated body of Gibson sitting with his head between his legs, and a note on the body that says "Search the House," which is identical to a scene in the video game Snatcher, created by Hideo Kojima, very famous game developer. And all of the names within Minefield of the houses, right, so Zane, Gillian, Gibson, and Benson, are references to the video game Snatcher. So obviously somebody at Bethesda probably had some kind of affinity for that game. So a pretty interesting Easter egg within Fallout 3. And then also within this house, in the master bedroom, we can find two bodies like cuddled together on the bed, along with pre-war book and some Med-X on the nightstand. And then behind the shelves, we can find a locked safe, and again, the same kind of loot inside. And then the last house we can find is Gillian House. And inside of this house, it has been infested with rad roaches, so you're going to definitely want to take them out. I may have gone overkill here with the shotgun, but it felt very satisfying to annihilate an enemy in this game after kind of struggling for so long. And then in the master bedroom, underneath the bed, we can find the safe, just kind of hidden there. This one had a lot of bottle caps for me, which is of course nice. And in the kids' room, we can find a copy of Grognak the Barbarian. So lots of kind of decent loot within Minefield, and of course there's a lot of mines. And real quick, I wanted to point out that during the Wasteland Survival Quest for Moira, you have to come to the Minefield and you have to come to the playground, which is nearly in the center of the Minefield. And then you have to return to her. Now, for a bonus, you can bring her an actual mine from Minefield, and that'll make her very happy. Also, there are special dialogue options if you have high enough endurance, perception, or agility.
Oh, well, if that's all, I'll just study this and hope there aren't any more explosions, shall I?
And finally, I try to do some research to see if Ridgefield or Minefield was based on any kind of real-life location. as many locations in Fallout are. However, I couldn't find anything, so it just seems like something the developers put together, and they created a pretty devastating storyline in Arkansas. I always feel really bad about killing him, but I do think it's probably the best option to kind of put him out of his misery. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this episode of the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. If you have any recommendations for the next video, please post them in the comments section below. And, as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be checking out the Roach King's Throne. This is a location northeast of the Minefield, and I found this location while researching about the Minefield. This is a location I knew nothing about. I had no prior knowledge. I just saw it on the wiki, and I was like, wow. And I went here, and now it's one of my favorite locations in Fallout, so let's check it out. As you can see here on the Pip-Boy, this is an unmarked location just northeast of the Minefield, west of the Temple of the Union. Now, I really like this area of the map because it's pretty barren, pretty remote. Now, north of the Roach King's Throne, we can find a random encounter location for B scenarios. Here I encountered Sam Warwick, who is actually a raider within Fallout 3, a named raider, and he was hunting a wastelander for whatever reason. And upon further research, I learned that not much is really known about Sam, but he is a raider, and apparently he is from Evergreen Mills, according to the Fallout 3 official game guide. However, his motives are not really clear within the game itself, so we only have an external material to rely on. But I thought it was a pretty cool random encounter and a pretty cool NPC. And then out in this location, if you're just wandering around, you're going to notice a red rocket playground set surrounded by rad roaches and then a wooden chair in front of it. It's a pretty wild scene to be in the middle of frickin' nowhere. But here we are, and upon approaching this location, you will be attacked by rad roaches and the Rad Roach King. Now, as I approached, I actually forgot to equip my power armor, and then using the shotgun, I actually shot his weapon out of his hands, and then he panicked and ran away to try and catch his weapon. But, obviously, I was able to kill him before that. I got very lucky because he is equipped with a minigun, which I was actually pretty surprised that he had a minigun on him. So, this is just a really wild location. Rad roaches are, of course, probably the easiest enemy within Fallout 3, although they are pretty scary, if I do say so myself. Then the Rad Roach King is actually pretty tough. Upon approaching the throne, we can find some metal boxes, but there's nothing in them. Within the Red Rocket Playground set itself, we can find a mini nuke along with some dirty water. Now, I don't know why the Rad Roaches accept this man as their king, but I like it a lot. I tried to sit down on the throne, but these Rad Scorpions weren't having any of it. They said, "You are not the king," so I had to kill the Rad Scorpions, and then I returned the proper king to his place. But as I said, you can find a mini nuke here, which is really good, but besides that, there's not a whole lot of loot here. There is an ammunition crate next to the throne that has some good ammunition in it, the 5mm rounds, for the minigun. But besides that, not a whole lot here, but it does provide a pretty cool location. I think this is a very amazing throne. And as I mentioned, I decided to bring back the Rad Roach King and to put his body on the throne itself. And then further east, after completing the Waters of Life quest, there will be an Enclave outpost on top of this rocky hillside. And this is actually a pretty good area because enemies cannot attack you on this hillside, as you will see in a little bit. There is an Enclave officer stationed here, but he was pretty darn easy to kill since he doesn't have power armor on. And there is some pretty decent loot around this area, specifically microfusion and then energy cells. So really good for energy weapons. Then, as I said, enemies cannot touch you here, and there were actually 2 Yaoguai that this officer was fighting, but the Yaoguai cannot reach this location, and the officer wouldn't leave this location, kind of leaving the battle in a stalemate. Now, something I found really interesting is these Yaoguai started hiding in a bush. Now, of course, the bush does not deflect or defend against bullets, but I thought it was really interesting that the AI would try to hide itself within a bush, trying to camouflage itself, and then eventually I came out and I killed the Yaoguai. There were 2 of them, I sniped one, and then used my laser rifle on the other. And there you have it, the Roach King's Throne. This is just an amazing location in Fallout 3 and all of Fallout. It's random, it's chaotic, and it's funny. It's everything that Fallout is in one location. And you have a mini nuke here for whatever reason. I just love it. Now, I wanted to also add that this is a playground set. As I said before, it's a Red Rocket playground set with a wooden chair in front of it, some plastic mats surrounding the area, and then a clock above the chair. But I do have to say, I think it creates a pretty majestic throne. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. If you have any recommendations for the next video, please drop them in the comment section below. And, as always, until next time.